All right, y'all. Welcome back to another edition of All Politics of Local America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. Well, listen, y'all. Y'all know that if it is the third Friday, y'all know that it is, of course, the Mayor's Forum with our beloved brother, the one and only Mayor Raz J. Baraka from the great city, our city of Newark, New Jersey. So we're gonna get that started. Of course, the mayor got a guest coming through tonight. Our brother Marsan, the general. So he's going to be in the building. We're going to have a discussion tonight. Some about we had a little brief conversation about this off the air, about the attacks that our queen is having. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to give the mayor the platform on his show to be able to do what he want to do. And, when I think about that, DJ Rhino, I think about that song that Jay-Z had where he said, "You're going to learn tonight." You know what I mean? So we're gonna talk a little bit about that because we all got to be clear. The enemy, for Samir Rice is also the enemy of Tamika Mallory and the enemy of any brother or sister that's trying to do any work in the street. So we're gonna do that first on the mayor's show, and then try to get some updates from him. And then we got Pamela Chopra coming through. She's going to come through and talk about the immigration reform. Talk a little bit about those two bills that was passed down in the House this week in regards to DACA. So we're going to talk somewhat about that. Try and get an update from her. Yeah. And then Zaid, you got Momia's doctor coming through, right?
Dr. Ricardo Alvarez, a people's doctor in the real sense of the word, and of course, we're in a fight against the ultimate for Mumia right now in a way we haven't seen in a few years. So it's very critical, and this is a very important update, and it's definitely a time for everybody who hasn't gotten in to get in. All right, because we're fighting for his freedom, and it may take his freedom just to save his life at this point.
Absolutely incredible. And then, of course, Rhino gonna come through. He's gonna close out the show. He's gonna tell us everything that's been going on in hip hop. Hopefully, we're gonna talk a little bit too, Rhino, about what happened at the Grammys, man, in terms of Nas winning a Grammy, man, for the first time. That's absolutely insane.
I didn't realize.
Yeah, you would think he would have gotten something much earlier, much sooner than that. But I mean, still, congrats to him. It was a good album.
Yeah, but I'm saying with all the great albums this brother's done, I mean, for him, for these folks, see, I mean, listen, man, you know what? Don't even get me started, man, because I said the white ass Grammys last time, man. What is it going to take for these folks, man, to realize what quality hip hop is? Now, I'm not talking rap, I'm talking quality hip hop, man.
Yeah.
But hopefully we can talk about that, Rhino, when we get to you. So let's throw it to the mayor. Of course, it's the mayor's forum. Peace, Mayor.
Peace, brother. Glad to be on with all of y'all as usual. Yep, lot of stuff going on, so a lot to talk about. That's for sure. Yep. Yeah.
No, I what I was going to say before you get started, I want to hear what Zaid was talking about. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that Khalid the Tower, bro.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Khalid the Towers. I mean, that brings up a lot of memories for a lot of folks. They the 70s. Gibson was the mayor then. Just got elected. Maybe a year or so before that, and they tried to. My father and C-Fund and other folks tried to build affordable housing over in the North Ward. In the enclave of then Anthony Imperiale and other racists that were running around at the time. You should see his video he has on YouTube, an interview they did with Imperiale. It was so not only was it ignorant, it was just dumb. He didn't have any information correct at all. But they prevented them from building it. They actually got a tax abatement. The council rescinded their tax abatement, unheard of. Today, the city would be sued millions and millions of dollars.
Tell it.
Gave them a tax, voted on a tax abatement, then voted to rescind their tax abatement for no real reason at all. The state also had pledged to give them some support. They backed away. So everybody backed away. And as a matter of fact, they had dug the foundation for it.
Right.
And the foundation was filled back up. They actually filled the foundation up. And, you know, in between that time and the filling, you know, there was real conflict going on, like real physical conflict going on as well between folks because they just didn't want them to build housing over there, period. And it was called Kawaida Towers, right? So after, you know, the principles that they followed at the time, the Kawaida principles at the time, the real basis of it is not even about that, right? It's about the fact that these folks didn't want low-income housing. They didn't want affordable housing in their community. They didn't want Black people in their community. And they did what they could to stop that. And they did. They stopped it, at least temporarily. And now, you know, the ghost of Kawaida came back to haunt them. So, at the end of the day, we're building it. And we're building 100% affordable housing now, right downtown.
Right downtown, no. Yes, sir.
On in the middle of it, and it's going to be called Kawaida Towers. That's going to be on the side of the building, Kawaida Towers. And in the lobby, they're going to have, with the help of Rutgers University and Nan Tech World, a kind of historical display of everything that happened during that time.
Yes.
To build and stop the building of Kawaida Towers.
Man, Baraka, can I say something? Because we got folks, this is a hip hop show. And a lot of young folks may not understand that apartheid was alive and well in this town.
That's right.
And that's what your father and his troops were fighting against. They broke down modern urban gangster apartheid before we start, you know, emulating some mafiosos and whatnot. We really need to understand the unpack the baggage that comes with that, right? And that was a groundbreaking moment on its own terms. And Newark at that time, by virtue of everything that your father was doing, became the epicenter for what we then called Black Power, with your father picking up Malcolm's line, right? Which is one of the things that I was trying to get over to my dear folks in that documentary, Who Killed Malcolm X, and they totally got that wrong.
Yeah,
right? Because that's the real story about Malcolm and Newark, right? But no, I want folks to understand that background, that the North Ward looked very different.
Right.
Its population was very different.
Yeah.
You a Black man going up Bloomfield Avenue, wrong time of night, you get your behind surrounded by white men with baseball bats with the permission of the Newark police to get your skull cracked. That's what we were dealing with back then.
That's right.
Right. And it took organization that included armed self-defense to back that up.
100%. And to build a housing a building over there where Black people were going to be was really, you know, add insult to injury to those folks. I was actually reading one of the old papers that I got from Rasasi online and of that time. And it actually was talking about what was going on in terms of the Kawaida Towers. And what caught my attention was a whole nother article at the bottom of it. It said, Vailsburg is Mississippi. And that was the title of the article. I was like, wow.
Vailsburg was different then.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
very Italian, very Polish, and them folks were they didn't want to see no brown coming in their part of town.
I mean, that was something to be able to see that, you know. It said Vailsburg, and listen and read all of the comments that people were making about Newark at the time. This is the 70s that that we're talking about here. You know what I mean? So it ain't this is not ancient history. It's the 1970s that we talk about.
This is my lifetime.
And so they were talking about building the Kawaida Towers back then in the West Ward.
In the North Ward.
In the North Ward. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
In the North Ward.
It was a bold statement. It was a bold anti-segregationist statement. It was very bold.
Wow.
And that was before that North Ward became, majority populated with the Latino population that's over there now. It was mostly Italians at the time, Anthony Imperiali, and who led that gang of folks over there who acted really crazy. And that's really what the history of it is. And before people know what's going on, and this was in a city at that time that was predominantly Black.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
Wow.
and people need to understand that, right? The Newark was predominantly black before the rebellion happened, not afterwards. See, they always twist that story and make you believe that the city went up in smoke and then everybody left because of that. No, they left before that because the federal government subsidized it
That's right.
and gave them damn near zero interest loans
That's right.
to build housing
In the suburbs.
and down payments in the suburbs
That's
and
right.
built highways like
Right.
280 and 78.
Right.
Allowed them to move to the suburbs and still work in the city at the same time.
Mhm.
So the jobs and stuff was still controlled by people who were not black and brown, but they didn't live in the city, so they took the wealth right out of the community. And we're still really fighting against that trend today, you know, years later. But at the end of the day, that's what it was, right? And basically, we were living in a town that was at that point predominantly black, and then later black and brown, and the infrastructure of the town was still controlled by white people. And then, so when you say rebellion, that's really what happened: the suppression of people, their culture, the police beating them. You have, you know, like Zaid pointed out, there's parts of the city you can't travel in. I mean, that's idealistic to believe that relationship is going to continue, right? That's not going to continue for too long. And so somebody with sense should have known that at some point that it would be a powder keg and the city would go up the way it did, right? And that's really basically what happened.
Yeah, indeed.
And Anthony Imperial was the mayor at the time.
No,
Out of Egypt.
He thought he was the mayor, probably. He was running around here like he was the mayor.
So he was the gangster. He was the muscle.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah.
Let's throw this in though, right? Because, you know, we're gonna do a segment on me in a minute, right? We had a corridor of this mess going all up and down from Philly, you know, from the south all the way up to, you know, as far as north as we can take it, and people didn't realize it back then. Philly was run by Frank Rizzo back then.
Oh,
he had the police first, right, and then became mayor. And you know, and the town had that kind of reputation. They talked that brotherly love for tourists, but they kept their Negroes in place, and they were unabashed about that, right? And that's the cesspool that Mumia stepped in, and that's why he's still dealing with the mess that he's dealing with now. Is residual from that.
Yeah, and you know, people don't understand. That's why these cities are still in bad shape. You know, at the end of the day, when people of color start taking over these cities, mayors, councilmen, all of that, they already done looted the place for the most part, right? And then the bases or the structural resources that were there based on property taxes and all that, they redlined the city, stopped investment, and moved all of the wealth out into the suburbs. Yep, that's which is what exactly happened. And so you're talking about, you know, trying to recover from that, and we've been trying to recover for that for almost 50 years. So for more than 50 years. So that's really, you know, what's been going on. And Kawahita Towers was, you know, to me is like symbolic at this point, right? Like I said then, like at the ribbon cutting, you know, one is real affordable housing that we creating because we need it, and we're doing it downtown in the heart of it, or the heart of downtown, where things are being developed and changed. And we subsidizing the housing down there, and we calling it Kawahita just because they refuse to allow us to build it, to let them know that, you know, the righteous are always going to be victorious. It might not be today, but it will be one day.
Self-determination, baby, right. All the way. That's right.
Well, so that's really what it is. And, you know, I was excited about it. You know, it is a legacy project, and I'm gonna be happy when it's the ribbon cutting and people get to go in there. And I told them, listen, once this word get out and we do a ribbon cutting for this, people gonna come from all over the place just to see this building called Kawahita Towers that's being built down here, especially people who were alive to know the history of what was going on in that time.
My God, yes.
Just the relationship of it all, not even having to do with Milana Karanga and all that other kind of stuff, but just to come and see that this building was built after all of that stuff that went on.
Yeah, I think that, you know, like you, first off, man, I don't think it was the ghosts. I think it was clearly our ancestors. I think it was clearly Amiri and and all them brothers, because listen, man, you said it yourself, right? You know this. Before Amiri went home to be with the Lord, he was trying to get you elected on his deathbed, brother. You know what I mean? So seeing that Kawaii Towers go up, brother, to all the ancestors where he's sitting right now saying, Raz got it done. You know what I mean? And that's important to us, man.
It is very important.
I think
that's legacy.
Yes. And I think that for all of us, and even our children, your children, man, when they walk by there, just to know, the history of what it is you just laid out, man. I mean, and especially in this town in Newark, because I mean, man, I'm sure you hear it like we do. Listen, man, if we don't get organized before you decide to say you done with being mayor, trust me, the next mayor coming in town, brother, ain't gonna make sure that the legacy of Black people live like that.
Well, I thought it was important, man, to it's the last piece of property the city owns downtown Newark, to make it mean something serious.
Wow.
Before the whole place turns into something else that we can't stop it, because honestly, this thing is like an avalanche, and I always explain that. I was talking at Rutgers one day and told the faculty and staff there that I said, this thing is an avalanche. Capitalism, gentrification. Once you press the button, it's hard to turn it off. Like it just happens. And so what you're doing is you're trying to protect yourself, build or mitigate things so you don't get crushed. Because that's you fighting against the kind of natural systemic development of where we live at, right? So at the end of the day,
right,
like people are gonna if New York is getting too expensive, people are gonna come here. That's what's gonna happen. It's gonna raise the prices, raise the rents, all of that kind of stuff. So you have to have deliberate, intentional, and active policies and opportunities to make sure that working people and poor people have an opportunity, and Black and brown people are part of that. You have to do it deliberately. It's not going to happen by accident. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It has to happen intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
So the last piece of property we own, we had to make it 100% affordable and find a way to do that, and then put the stamp on it by calling it Kawaii. So people get upset that we made 100% affordability. Now they're really upset that we had the nerve to name it Kawaii Towers.
That's right.
Yeah. And the name of the mayor is goddamn Raz Baraka. They really upset about that. Like he gets to name it Kawaii Tower, and his name is Raz Baraka, and his daddy is Amiri Baraka. Oh my!
They will be all right.
People got to know we passed by, brother.
Right.
That we were here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
they have to know that we were here, even for a brief second.
That's
this
right.
was the period where we showed up.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, man. Listen, man. I'm telling you, as my man, 250 grand. That's why, and I said this to you years ago, though, man. That's why, for the first time in my life, when you became mayor, I felt like in the city we had a mayor. You know what I mean? Because it felt like, and this, Zaid, it felt like for us, man, all the conversation Miri been having with us, when Raz was off in school, him and Mitty, that finally, man, we were able to see something from all those rallies in the street, man. What I mean? Mm-hmm. And know that, people are never going to forget the work and legacy and life of Amiri Baraka. That means
we don't want them to forget it, and that's for sure, man. Listen, I feel good in February when we get to raise the red, black, and green flag in front of City Hall. I mean, that by itself does a lot for me, but being able to build Kawaii Towers is going.
Yeah,
it really does it all, man. It really sets out besides the other things that we get to do. Yep.
Yeah, and the name pisses them off for me, brother. Just to keep saying Kawaii Tower, brother, is powerful, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember a lot of stuff, man. It invokes a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Oh my God! But one other thing, but back to our children, and this is this is the Kwanzaa. Us as Kwanzaa children, right? Right. We can act now. We got something that we can point to. See, when we talking about Ujamaa.
Yeah.
We're talking about because that's where we've been weakest. right? Then, and we can't blame the young folks or nobody for that. Grown folks got to wear that. But we
Right.
got something we can point to,
Right.
right? That comes from that legacy, that's real. That's huge. What is the timeline on? I mean, what is the looking to break ground when and
Yeah,
how
we should be breaking ground.
be done?
We should be breaking ground probably at the end of the spring, beginning of summer. 12 months from there, it should be up. So 2022, the top, we should be able to see it.
Wow.
Bam, right there. And I look so forward to that. So
Yeah.
hopefully they keep that timeline.
Yeah.
And we get it developed. The irony of it is that even in the council, they were arguing about the tax abatement once again. That's the irony of that, right? So
Wow. Wow.
But it passed, right? Because the council has changed as well, right? So now you have people on there that support that are not afraid and they're not going to rescind it, right? So that's also an important piece to lay out, because then the council voted for it, but then they backed away.
Yeah.
They backed away.
That's right. Battles are won and lost in details. That's what Fidel taught us.
That's right. They ran as hard. This pressure is serious, man, and these people be after you for real. It's not like a game. So at the end of the day, people they make choices based on their longevity.
Yeah, and that's absolutely
so in the world of development, what has been the reaction since the press conference?
Well, I mean, folks are all asking a bunch of questions. They're curious. They want to know what's going on, obviously. And I think that once they start seeing people in the building it and putting it together, I think it's just going to grow from there. Mm-hmm. The co-developer on the project is Mid-Atlantic Group. These are guys that were born and raised in Baxter Terrace projects.
Right.
African-American young dudes. One of them is Tahir Whitehead, who is playing at NFL, who grew up in Newark, New Jersey, played football here, went to the NFL, came back, was a part of that Mid-Atlantic Group. So they're also a part of that. So there's a lot of pieces to it.
Yeah.
That folks,
Mo Vaughn's companies involved.
Curious about.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, they're not going to stop trying to do what they do to make sure things don't go the way we need it to go. But we just got to stay vigilant, brother.
Yep. And the thing is, man, that speaks to not just your legacy, man, but it speaks to Black people legacy in this city, man. And so, we all got to stay vigilant to make sure that this this comes to fruition, man. So I want to say congratulations to you, my brother. And once again, man, appreciate you standing strong, brother.
Absolutely.
Never falling down and being a punk. I think that, that's the example, that I'm most proud of, man, when people talk about our city, that when push come to shove, man, you just don't back down, man. And I'm saying that to you publicly. I'll say it to you privately, but I'm going to say it publicly. I appreciate you never doing that, man.
That's right. In addition to that, too, it also means several other things. One, the importance of electing grassroots leadership, as opposed to just putting careerist Negroes in spots that are going to betray you because they just careerists.
Say that again.
Right? The importance of rearing and electing grassroots leadership.
That's right.
Right?
That's
As opposed to just funneling in some careerists that'll buy and sell you out at a heartbeat because they have no real stakes in the organic space that they're coming from. Right? It's also important for what it can say to other folks in other cities that they too can do for themselves.
That's right.
See, without vision, the people perish. Right? No, part of our history and our legacy of struggle is that we provided folks with what this thing called power in our hands and democracy in our hands looks like.
Right. Well said.
There's some folks that are messed up, but those who've honored the tradition have done it in an exemplary way.
Well said, Brother Zai.
Well said.
So, man, I got two more things we got to get to before we get to my son and he joined the show. Two pieces. One, first, how are you doing after you taking those two shots, my brother?
I'm okay, brother. I mean, the second one I was a little weak, you know.
Oh, the COVID shots. Yes.
I
Okay.
was tired, but I'm okay. It didn't have any real deep impact on me. Thank God. I just second time I was just worn down a little bit, and you know I try to come outside anyway and do what I normally do, and my body just told me to sit down. So I listened the second day and just chilled out, and you know I feel a lot better. That's for sure.
Well, you know, we were worried about you, brother.
Yes,
You know
sir.
what I mean? So,
Good.
you
you
know,
you know, Cuba has in Cuba they have
Tell them. Come on.
created
Come on.
4 different vaccines.
Come on. That's right. And get ready to vaccinate the whole population, and ain't nobody getting hustled, and ain't nobody getting, you know, discriminated against. You know.
They came up with 4 different ones.
That's right. And get ready to help Latin America help itself in ways that they can't get help without spending a whole lot of money and going in debt,
Right.
trying to deal with these pharmaceuticals here in the north.
Because they don't have the money to deal with that.
Right. Exactly right.
Yep. So
Exactly right.
that's going to be a game changer for a lot of the people in Latin America and the Caribbean as well. You know,
Yes.
all of the
yeah.
English speaking, Spanish speaking, French speaking
Yes.
countries in the Caribbean are going to benefit from that one way or another if they obviously have the courage to be able to deal with the Cuban government and get the vaccine. At this point, it's about life and death, and I think a lot of them are going to do it. As the politics aside, they just need to understand that these people have the apparatus and the scientific advancement to be able to create these vaccines without the direct help and resource of the Western world, right? And so,
Right.
you know, we just have to get our people to understand that. And in America, all of these cities that are, if these people are willing to come here and give out vaccinations, then we should be giving them an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cuba has been in over 40 countries. It just went into Panama a little while ago. That's somebody very dear to me. It's in Panama. It's from Panama. They've been in over 40 countries, including some countries in Europe.
Yeah.
In response to this pandemic, right?
Even Italy.
That's right. Italy. That's what I'm talking about. Absolutely right. So it's, I mean, the world, what Cuba has given to the world, a small country, right, that doesn't have a ton of national resources, enduring a 60-year-old blockade, 60 years, right? Generous as all get out, and a true example of international human solidarity that deserves a lot of love and respect.
Yeah, but that's not even being promoted, right? That Cuba got 4 vaccines. I didn't even know anything about it, man. You know what I mean? It's the first time I'm hearing it.
It's not going to be promoted over here, brother. I mean, you just gotta keep your ear to what's going on, but ultimately that's what's happening. And at this point, like anybody that's creating a vaccine, people should know about it.
That's
and
right.
They have access to. Everybody should know about that.
That's right.
Especially if they're talking about this is a world pandemic. Then the world needs to come together, and whoever can assist to help should help and assist. Right.
Right. That's right.
And we can't be backward and crazy about it. Listen, when Germany in World War II began, they didn't stop the Russian government from participating in defeating the fascists in Germany. They united with them to help do that. I mean, to have this kind of world pandemic going on and not involve, you know, the Cuban government if they created something is criminal. You know, because it means people's life. You put people's life at risk. And I you know, these people dislike Cubans more than they dislike Russians and the folks in China and everywhere else. And they basically got somewhat of the same ideology, right? But the reason is, you know, these people in Cuba are, you know, small country of brown folks who, you know, outwitted and outsmarted these folks for so long, you know, and so that becomes, you know, a problem, a sticking point. And then the kind of political power that these folks have here in this country makes it difficult for people to do trade and do business with the Cuban government, which to me is a problem, you know, especially now, right? Especially now.
Yeah, because I would think, man, for all of the brothers and sisters that are on the fence that don't want to take any of the vaccines that the American government is giving out, I think that a lot more of the brothers and sisters would be willing to take the Cuban vaccine. And if
I
they're
would do
talking
that
about
in a
right, if they're
heartbeat.
talking about creating herd immunity,
They might. That's true. I mean, that's why it needs to be considered.
right?
That's why it needs to be considered. And any rational-minded, serious person that's interested in defeating this vaccine takes every weapon they can get.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So if you
And war, all weapons on the table.
right, if you talking about, listen, all we care about is making sure that people can get back to normal life, and if that vaccine is available, if 4 additional vaccines are available, why wouldn't they make it available? That just goes to show you that's not for real with them, man. And we've got to question that.
No, absolutely. That's right. And there's almost a concerted effort to like make sure that people don't know about this information. And luckily I talked to a few people. We have some information, and there are people who are lobbying the African American Mayors Association across the country because they know that there is a shortage of access to vaccines in our communities, in Black and brown communities, and are willing to get that for our community, since we are 3 times more likely to die from the COVID vaccine, but 10 times less likely to take the vaccine.
That's right.
Which means that we're in danger.
Right.
And so we have to give people something that works and something that they're willing to take. That's just scientific. It has nothing to do with all of the hangups that these other people have.
Right. And you just heard Zaid said he'd be willing to take that one. And come on, man, this just being on the real side, right? For all of the brothers and sisters, even me, right? I'd be willing to take it. I haven't taken that vaccine, but and that, man, just knowing, the way we think, right? If that was made available. So all the Black mayors, ought to be pushing for that. Look, I mean, all of the brothers and sisters aren't going to be willing to do that. So, we need to push hard if we can to see how we can get that, here in the United States. And I know that that's probably the same thing for the Nation of Islam, because as man, they're telling folks definitely not to take it. That, Zaid, that's what Hawk was laying out when he was here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard that as well. I mean, people are saying that, but at this point, man, it's like we in a rock and a hard place, right? And our folks are just, we falling down from this. And
Right.
we're going to have something like real and scientific for our people. We can't just like tell people to go a certain direction and not have help for them at the end of that. Our seniors are watching their neighbors die.
Right.
They come into the vaccine sites in droves.
Mhm.
We bring it there. They want to get it because they're scared. They're seeing their neighbors die. And so we have to provide them something, which is why, I'm going to, get involved in the push to the African American mayors to try to get this vaccine from Cuba over here to the United States. But because we need as much as the vaccine that people are not afraid of, that they're interested in taking, and so forth and so on. We just have to do it. Like and anything other than that, to me, is a problem, brother. Because either side of this, we're losing.
Right.
That's right.
Right, we're losing.
Let me big picture this too, because I think the thing that we also really need to be talking about is another level of solidarity with Cuba at this moment and doing our share to end this blockade. Right, City of Chicago just did their city council did a resolution calling for the end of the blockade, and there's several cities starting to do that. So I think that's a broader thing that we need to really take into consideration, because a lot of people think they think that Black folks, just to go back into that 60s moment for a second, that we were cool till we started talking about the world stage, right? Martin Luther King was cool till he started talking about the world stage, right? No, but we can participate on the world stage too, right? And participate in a principal way, and that imagine what more space as energetic, as free, as creative, and as principally committed would generate if it did not have the shackle of the blockade on it. Imagine what Cuba would be then, right? Imagine Venezuela is just trying to get to first base, right?
That's right.
And, I mean, leave them alone. All right, they do their thing. Leave them alone. Let them develop, and let's have some principled solidarity around them.
Right. No, I understand that. That's for sure. I mean, there are people over there that are suffering, and what that really says to me in terms of organizing and activism and strategy here in the States. Like, at the end of the day, if you cut off people's food, medicine, basic necessities, it's difficult to organize people in that. It's always difficult to maintain people's loyalty and so forth and so on to whatever program you have, because they have to think about eating, right? They have to think about moving forward. And the smallest, even if you're sharing things, if you don't have much to share, it becomes a problem, right? And that's our issue here, right? And so at the end of the day, we try to organize people without meeting their needs, and that's where the problem becomes. Like, we try to feed people ideas, and that's good. We need to.
What did your mother teach us?
But we had to give them food first,
right?
You got
black beans and rice, baby, huh? Come on,
you got to feed them, and
that's
then you get these ideas. I mean, and we don't understand that. You want to know why? So you going back and forth with these people who have the attention of our folks, and you mad, and you say, oh, you shouldn't be listening to them, you should be listening to us. But one thing the Panthers understood before they got into this, the battle with the police all the time, and the COINTELPRO and all that stuff that happened, they understood the necessity for basic programs, feeding programs, clothing programs, educational programs,
62. Count them.
It's necessary. It's
That's
absolutely
right.
Positively 100% necessary, which is why, in city government and folks like that, people want to know why they following elected officials, why they doing this, because they're feeding them. They're giving them jobs. They're providing them people's opportunity. They have, we feed thousands, hundreds, millions of people who need it. You're finding them housing. You're doing these other kind of things. People become loyal to folks when those things happen because they need that. And we have to understand that and figure out how to be able to provide the necessities and at the same time try to change the cultural, what's happening culturally and what people are thinking ideologically at the same time. And we try to separate the two, and you can't separate the two.
Right on.
And then you wind up fighting each other. And that's that's the whole thing, I think around this Tamika Mallory thing, right? So I can dig that
excellent segue.
The parents and the other people are upset. You know what I mean? They have a right to be upset, right? These people are upset. They want justice for their children and other things that happen, and it has not happened at the speed, at the rate, sometimes not at all that they want. But that's not Tamika Mallory's fault. That's the system's, institution's fault that stuff didn't happen, right? They don't want it to happen. She's trying to force these things to happen, and our anger gets misplaced, right? And so we wind up trying to attack the people who are fighting the same system you're fighting, but the results are not as quick as you thought that they should be or could be. And everybody has a different role in this thing, So we gotta make our ideas mainstream. You have to make it. You have to. What does that mean? That means that with the regular working families, when they listen to you, they have to say, "I agree with that. That this is what we should be doing," and begin to push. And so you take ideas that were once fringe ideas. Even Bernie Sanders running as a socialist right now. There was a point in America you couldn't even come outside and say you were a socialist.
Lock your behind up.
That's right.
You couldn't even do that.
That's
so
right.
to mainstream those ideas are important. You have to have people to mainstream those ideas because it helps you further the struggle and further those ideas. Like, people were getting arrested, losing their jobs, families broken up, deported for people believing that they were a part of these people weren't even socialists. They were doing things that were deemed socialist, right? And they weren't a part of no socialist or communist organizations. They were doing things that would deem that and were being attacked. Now a person can run for president of the United States as a socialist, you know, in a major party. That's huge, and people don't understand that. But that is the mainstreaming of ideas. And people like Tamika Mallory and Until Freedom and all of those folks, they're public. They're making people contend with these ideas and contend the whole concept of defund the police and all this other stuff. They're trying to mainstream those ideas. They're trying to put that stuff out there. It doesn't mean because they protest, because they march, because they do all these things that the system is going to fall down tomorrow and give you everything that you need. This thing is protracted.
That's right.
It takes a long period of time, and you have to have the wherewithal to deal with it. And some people fight that and hurt. Yeah, you have to have the wherewithal. And people that support that kind of division, it's not good. You can't have people getting on and egging that on, saying, yeah, you know, be against Tamika Mallory. Tamika Mallory ain't shoot your child.
Right.
She's not having a social, political, and economic benefit from the death of your children. There are people who are doing that though, who are, we have to be able to be astute enough to understand that and divide that up and give our people the information that they need so they can understand who their real enemies are and not mistake their friends for their enemies, right? Or destroy their allies. Because our problem is we do a very good job at isolating ourselves and pushing our allies away, and then we wind up fighting the fight by ourselves, and then we want to know why we isolated and why our enemies always win, because you done pushed all the people who could help you away. You know, we need to put we done pushed everybody away. We should take a page out of the, you know, actually the Latino or the Puerto Rican activists who were able to free those Latino and Puerto Rican political prisoners.
Yes.
We need to take a page out of that because
full-fledged,
not only they had activists on the ground in the community, they had their elected officials supporting
them. Yes.
Together. They brought everybody into one tent.
United front all the way. Yes.
They figured out how to bring everybody into one tent and push for something to begin getting those people freed. Hell, I went to Lolita LeBron when she was freed. One of the first early people, Lolita LeBron, was freed in Puerto Rico. I went to her to a church in Harlem that my mother took me to when it was either Harlem or someplace in Manhattan. My mother took me to as a child to see her when she first got out of jail. I tell people that, but that was the past. But even in the distant past, I mean, in the not too distant past, these folks got political prisoners freed just because of the unity and the strategy that they used to bring everybody under one tent.
I have been arguing with our folks in our circle on that. This is just on that front alone. I've been doing this for over 30 years. Right? Yeah. I have been arguing with our folks about that. I'm the cub they always gets kicked out because I always argue with them. I said, we're keeping this too small. We're missing steps. We got to build you got to do the coalition building. We got to, and this is not rocket science. We come out of the spaces where we've done this already. Before we were doing it.
Yeah. And everybody's not going to agree with you, man. You're not going to have everybody around you who have the same position that you have. They're not going to. There's some things you're not going to agree with people on, and you just have to understand that. We're not together on this, but we could be together on the things we could be together on, right? And we need to be sophisticated enough to actually be together on those things, right? And do what we can to move forward, right? And keep pushing our agenda until it becomes more mainstream. And people don't like that word, but and I use it in the term of that it becomes everyday conversation. That's what I mean. When it becomes accepted dialogue, right? And that happens when we put it out there and we put it in the tongues and the mouths of specific people, and we actually affect the superstructure of what's happening. Who pushes these ideas on us every day? That we begin to challenge that and make our ideas present. I had a professor in Howard University called Ron Walters, who was Jesse Jackson's campaign manager, who put the first idea in my head of why you should be run for some political office. He said, if you're not in the conversation, then your ideas don't matter. Like you could be talking about things all you want.
Ron Walters is a great brother too, by the way.
You could be in the corner of wherever you at, having a conversation about whatever, right? Talking to your peers about that. But if it's not in the conversation, then it doesn't matter because nobody's arguing the points.
Right.
So you got to actually get in the debate.
Yeah.
And that's the point. You got to get yourself in the debate, right? And then make people, because the people who benefit from the debate are the people who are watching it, right? Not the people who are necessarily in it. So people who watched and listened to the things that Bernie Sanders was saying and other folks were saying are begin to see that what he's saying is not as demonic as these people are making it out to believe.
That's right.
That everybody should have health care. That's right. Right. Yeah.
And there are other places in the world where people can actually have that. Wow.
Yeah. And he said that.
Why don't we have it?
Right, exactly. Is that is something that we should be talking about.
That's my thing about Malcolm, right? Malcolm bum rushed the national dialogue, right?
That's right.
And I said, don't tell me about Malcolm if you ain't gonna talk about what he was talking about and how we need to make that a part of the national dialogue now.
Absolutely. And you have to find a way to put these things in the national discussion. You have to find a way to get everyday folks. Look, I just had a meeting with my folks around the violence prevention and trauma recovery office. Right. I said, the work that we're doing here, we have to put it on the tongues of the people in the city. Yeah. You don't have to worry about the police and the state and all these other people. The people in the city have to say that this is what they want. And this is the answer. If they don't say that this is the answer and this is what they want, it's not going to happen. And the minute we try to make it happen, the very people that are going to say this shouldn't happen are the people we organizing to help.
That's right.
Once somebody's grandmother that's 63 is shot in the head on their porch,
on their birthday,
these are the people who are going to be the first ones to say, why are you taking money from the police? That's what they're going to say. And then I'm going to have to be in public meetings kind of trying to defend that. So the work that we have to do is we have to make our discussion, the things that we're saying, we have to mainstream that, get it in the community so people can see that that is a part of the answer. Because right now, the only answer to crime in the community culturally is police. Right? So even the very people who say the things about the police who are a little bit more privileged because they don't live in these neighborhoods, if something happens to them, guess what they're going to do? They're going to call the police.
Right.
That's what happens. 100%. I was at a rally and saw one of those guys get on the phone and called. They got into an altercation at the rally, and they called the police at the rally. So at the end of the day, at the end of the day, the work that we have to do is deeper for us in our community, and we have to hold hands with a lot of people, and argue amongst each other, and then make our ideas mainstream. Like and I say mainstream on the dinner conversation, right? It has to be tabletop conversation for families, backyards, parties, events, barbershops, beauty parlors. That's the conversation that people should be having, all of the time about how to fix what's going on in their community, in their neighborhood. And that's just real. And people are going to foster that division. But the thing that happened with Tamika and all that, so people foster that division because it benefits them.
Yep.
It's corny.
Yep.
It's corny.
It benefits them.
Corny as hell. Yes, sir.
Absolutely benefits them.
And that's a great opportunity to welcome my Sean.
Segue
to the show. Welcome to the show, my brother.
What's going on,
doing
Warrior?
today, Kings? How y'all feeling today?
All right, beloved.
Peace, brother.
I'm blessed and highly favored, man. Just listening to you brothers drop jewels, man. I'm just honored to be a part of the conversation.
It was a good session. Yes, it was.
Glad to have you on, man.
Yeah, last time I saw you was coming in town helping us shake things up a little bit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We probably need to do it again, man.
Yes, sir.
We gotta make that an annual situation.
That's right. How about that? How about that? How about that?
Well, welcome to the mayor's forum, my brother, because
Yes, sir.
when the mayor heard about that, man, this week, the first thing he did, man, hit me up. He said, yo, man, he said, I want to talk about that, man. You know what
Yes,
I
sir.
mean? And, you know, because as you know, I mean, just like Tamika, man, you know, she didn't have any issue. Well, she didn't have any say so, as you know, coming into the movement. And that's the same thing with the mayor. And of course, his brother Mitty and them, you know, they didn't have any say so. So for people to say those negative things, they don't understand, man. The movement for some people was not a choice, right? It was a way of life,
That's right.
you know. And you know, I remember a mayor. I remember Mitty told me one time, you know, he said you and him, y'all didn't have a choice of what books y'all were gonna read. You know, he said, yo, we didn't get that choice, man. You know, we were given these kind of books, man, and so we had no other choice but to come up the way we came. And so for people with Tamika, they don't really understand that, right? They don't understand she's not this is not uh you know what is it, the Wives of Atlanta, where they trying to create a rift between, you know, Miss
Yeah,
Rice and
yeah,
Tamika,
yeah.
based around, because you know that's what our people like. But you know, there's some white folks who are the enemy of both of them somewhere sitting around, man, in my shine, sitting around somewhere and saying, "Yo, can we create a show from this?"
Fostering division for the
Right,
creation of commercial markets.
right.
Yeah, and that's what we said before. That's why it took us a while to even reply. You know, at first you're just shocked when you see allegations, and then you understand that the person who's making the allegations is dealing with their own trauma because the system
Sure.
and the structure failed them. And then
Right.
at that point, you have to be mindful that she lost her child, and you have to be mindful that
That's right.
that the powers that be are definitely trying to create this rift. You know, because what I stated, you know, we put out a statement today, and what I stated was, you know, the same people that were quick to take a tweet where she was angry and expressing her opinion and, you know, her concerns about us, were the same people who wouldn't promote a tweet with her saying that she needed justice for her son. You know,
100%.
so it's just misguided. So we understand what the strategy was. You know, at first when we sat back and thought about it, you know, it took a couple of days to really just go over it, and we put out our statement. You know, the main thing we wanted to focus on was the fact that it was strategic and it was the enemy trying to play us against each other, and we would not
Hmm.
ever allow y'all to have us disrespect or say anything negative about this woman who's dealing with her own pain and trauma. You know, she
Yes.
definitely deserves justice for her son, and we still need to advocate for that. But we just wanted to, you know, to let the record show and let it be clear. You know, for me, actually in 2014, this probably was the first time I got in the movement. So you know, he was a boy that I heard about, and definitely I wanted to see justice for him. You know, and we all screamed his name. But as far as, you know, trying to, you know, utilize him to catapult myself or raising money on his behalf or clout chasing, you know, I didn't even know. I wasn't even. I didn't even have the platform that I have now to be able to advocate for him on the level that we able to advocate now. You know, a lot of people are angry because she went to the Grammys, and I heard the mayor say we have to commercialize our message. We have to make sure that it's in the mouths of those who are not really connected to the movement. We got to get more soldiers. We need more accomplices, you know, like she said, not allies. We need more people to hear it. So you know, our strategy is, I come from the era of hip hop. I come from this culture. And if I can't grab the people that come from where I come from and bring them to this movement and let them know there's spaces for them, and let people that watch Love and Hip Hop, or even Real Housewives of Atlanta or the Grammys, and all these people understand that we need their voices, we need their energy, we need everything that they have in this fight, then, you know, then I'm useless in this, because there was a
Yes.
time where I thought that I didn't fit into this movement. There was a time where I thought it wasn't for me because, you know, my background wasn't stellar. You know, I didn't come from, you know, I came from humble beginnings, and, you know, and I was in the street. So there was a while that I never saw this movement for me or thought I had a space, you know. And when I started to realize and I started to create a space for myself, my whole goal was to make sure that people that come from where I come from understand that they have a role in it, you know. So I think a lot of
That
people
is
don't.
so important what you just said, son.
Yeah,
Because I come from that too.
yeah, and a lot
Right?
of people don't understand that.
Yes. That is so important what you just said. Because I was even going to add, that was going to be my first question to you. How did you take those steps from that to this, and how did it change your life in the process of you beginning to change other people's lives? You started banging on it all without me having to get to it. Right on to that.
Yes, sir. Because I was formerly incarcerated and falsely accused, and after serving 7 years in prison, I started to pay attention to the injustice system and pay attention to the strategy of keeping us ignorant and keeping us glorifying and thinking that we only were one ways, and referring to ourselves as savages and all these things, and then we started to act out that way. When I was in the streets and I was young, they made it a badge of honor to go to prison.
Yes.
It was a celebratory thing. When you came home, it was like a rite of passage.
Yes.
So my goal when I came home was to change that mind state and to change that belief and dispel those myths. So everything that I do is geared towards the young black boy on the corner that's hustling because he don't know nothing else, or he's involved with a gang because those are the only people he believes shows him love, or he's doing things because he wants to get some level of a reputation, but his heart is in the right place and he wants to do good, but he doesn't even know how to do good. He doesn't know where to do good. He doesn't understand how to get into something that's positive. So my goal being in this movement is not only just to advocate for those who have injustice committed against them, who have lost their lives, who live in marginalized communities and go through certain things, but just the average kid on the corner who wants to see something different. And I always say all the time, I used to go to these program directors at Hot 97 and Pub 105 and say, why y'all don't give us brothers who have positive messages, and steering the brothers in the right way, the same
access
that you give the people that's not doing that.
Right.
So now that we're starting to get that access and they starting to say, okay, we're going to give you these platforms. We're going to give Tamika a speech on the Grammys to where she can directly demand that the president give us equity and equality. We're going to put you on these TV shows, but it ain't going to be nothing ratchet. It's going to be you trying to transform their minds and telling them how they need to stop doing these things. So now that we get in these platforms, it's sad that our own people are the ones that's angry. But we understand that all the time. We've seen this strategy played out 1,000 times, man. And for us, we won't be turned back. We won't be let anything take away our energy, and we're just gonna keep moving.
Mayor, speak to that, man. When he just said your own people, man, right?
Yeah.
Who can speak better to that, right? Than the Baraka family, right? Especially the mayor, right? With the people, and Zayed, this, the people we ran with, right? To come against our brother. Go ahead, man. I ain't gotta speak for you. You know that, right? They ran with us.
Kid coming this way.
You're trying to soup me up on here, Ed.
But we can help. We can help this brother and him and Tamika. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And part of it is like the people have a lack of a serious analysis, right? So they don't know what's happening, and they don't know how the system works, and we have not been introduced to the proper information and literature to be able to, or history to be able to dissect what's actually going on, right? And so and I think brother said it, people become frustrated, and they have a right to be frustrated. It's frustrated at the wrong people, right? Because these people didn't create the problem. They're trying to fight the problem with you, and you need to figure out how to make these folks your allies. Because if you're in a battle, in a war, you need allies. You don't turn allies and weapons away, right? So you have to figure out, how to unite with people where they are, right? And that's what unity and struggle that my father was talking about. That's what it's about. You got to be able to do that, right? To be sophisticated enough to unite with people and battle with our differences, but do not allow the enemies to usurp our differences and use them to dismantle the movement altogether. That's number one. And then there's groups of people who are fighting for the attention of the masses of people. People want people, because obviously you're not a leader if ain't nobody following you, right? So at the end of the day, we're almost at battle with one another trying to get people to follow us. And then we feel like if we put the next person down, then the people who are following them, let's see how horrible they are, and then leave him and follow me. And to want people to be behind you, to me, based on that, to me, that's like, narcissism, right? Because it shouldn't be about the individual. It's about the idea. It's about who has the sharpest line, and then winning people over to that line. But my father used to say, you unite, but win over the masses, right? You have to win the people over to your line, and you do that by presenting your ideas and program to the people, and they have a right to embrace it, and you pull them along based on that, and not fight with other people, because they obviously, like I had a debate with a guy a while ago who was saying that black people were duped. That's why they're in the Democratic Party. And I said, well, I don't agree with that, because my grandmother wasn't duped. And my mother voted Democrat, and she certainly wasn't duped. You understand what I'm saying? The reality is people go for the choices that they have at present moment, and you have not provided an alternative choice that's viable to help people move their lives forward. And that goes back to what we were saying in the beginning. You have to feed people's immediate needs, deal with their immediate needs. You can't tell people you want them to go to Rutgers University down the street to a conference that they're having on jobs and employment, and they on the corner starving and they hustling. The first thing you have to do is figure out how to get them to move off the corner and get something in their pocket, in their mouths, and their stomach. So then they have the time and the inclination to go to the event that you're having about why people need jobs and so forth and so on. You might likely get one or two of them to come, but if you want the mass of them to come, then you have to figure out how to make it worth their while or feed their needs. And we think there's something wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's why people don't come towards us, because they believe that you're struggling over here and you don't have anything. You can't take care of your family. You can't take care of your community. You don't have anything to offer. I need a job. I need housing. I need food. And we really have to come to grips with that, man. And it really came to me, when my mother said to me, when we had this conversation about my father, and she said, your dad was an academic, intellectual, an artist, a writer, all this stuff, impactful. But when he went to the supermarket, nobody asked him for a job. And so the problem is, when you go to the supermarket, everybody's going to ask you for a job. And what does that mean? That means that you have to do something for people today. Like, you don't have time to wait for the workers of the world to unite.
That's right.
You got to do something for people today, like right now. And in your efforts to do something for people today, then you have to organize them culturally, politically, and socially, so they begin to understand why you're doing this for them, why it's necessary for them to be involved, how to help other people, and who the enemy is. And we have a hard time at identifying.
See, that's that Cabral in us. See, people are fighting for bread and to change their conditions, not just ideas, right?
That's right.
And national liberation is necessarily an act of culture. See, we bring that together, boom, and move people ahead. Right on.
That's right.
So it looks like the great Donald K. Williams has joined us. Madam, you with us?
Good evening. Good evening, everybody.
Yeah, and we. Good evening. We really need to, and I think it's instructive that we need to have this discussion about what's going on with Tamika and Until Freedom and all the activists that are out here. Because I'm gonna tell you this, man. Because the work that they did and have been doing, my son, Until Freedom, all of it, elevated this struggle.
Yep.
Huh?
Elevated it, right?
Yep.
Put it front and center. Not just the murders of these people, but the work that people did to respond to that, to give them the courage and the imagination to go out here and do these things. And now you got all these people saying this stuff. You got all kind of people repeating and saying the things that needed to be repeated and said. People who've never been talking about this stuff before. That's making the ideas mainstream. That's necessary. It doesn't stop you from doing your work. In fact, it makes your
The
work
best
easier to
expression of the
do.
work. Right on.
Right.
That's
It
right.
makes the work that you're doing easier in your community, right? So if you're a community organizer and you see these guys up there and you get angry at that because maybe you're not having the same level of success that you think you should be having as that they're having, y'all have a different role and responsibility. Your role and responsibility is different. That's not your role and responsibility. You need to be doing what you're doing in your community, organizing and having those meetings. But guess what? The more time that you see Tamika Mallory at the Grammys, at these events, will make more people come to your local meeting.
And let's unpack the basics that need to be appreciated, building exactly on what you said, right? Breonna Taylor's Kentucky don't look nothing like Ras Baraka's Newark, New Jersey, right?
Right.
At the top of this discussion, we're talking about how we change this condition when conditions change with us becoming a black majority city, right? Kentucky is white, backwards, Republican, and crazy as hell, and was armed to the teeth. And until freedom played a huge role in allowing, maintaining, and sustaining the daily protest activity in the face of that. And then beyond that, we somersault to Georgia. Oh, backward cracker breeder state, Georgia. Oh, yeah, that's what it is. All right? Right? It ain't just Atlanta. Okay? Right? And turn that red state blue. And they was on the ground, knocking on the doors, right? You know, in the until free. You see what Mossad is rocking in his gear, right? That's how they were knocking on them doors, making sure folks was getting their behinds out to vote in a state where the repression or the suppression of vote has been maximized and put in place by the very governor of the state himself when he was secretary of the state. We were going all the way uphill in Georgia, but turn that backwards red state blue.
But here's the other
all over the place.
But here's the other thing, Zaid, and my son, you can speak to this, man. You know that the whole level of pressure that you all were under, right, with your own safety by constantly being monitored 24 hours, right? We're trying to put in the kind of work y'all were putting in down there. Speak to that, man.
Oh, that was a lot, just the transition, man. Just to leave your home. I have a wife and two small children, and when we first got called to Kentucky from Breonna Taylor's mother and Benjamin Crump, it was late May, and Crump was like, this lady has been killed, and nobody knows about it. We're trying to get the people to pay attention and charge the officers, and he explained to us what happened, and the mother got on the phone, and we was like, wow, we need to go down there. So we first went down there for Memorial Day, and they brought us to the complex and to the home where she was shot, and they showed us all the holes through the walls, and showed us how her little sister, who could have been there, wasn't there because she had went away that weekend, but it was bullet holes all in her bed and all in her room, and she would have been there. The mother would have lost both her daughters. So we just understanding that and process this and say, this is something that needs national attention. And then we decided to move down there in August after constantly going back and forth. We decided in August that we were going to go down there and relocate, and we stayed down there for 4 months, took our residency, and we protest every day. And every day we had drones following us home.
Wow.
We had the helicopters flashing lights on our homes just about every night. We had unmarked cars parked in our driveway. When we did marches, one march, they tear gassed us for no reason. There was no reason to do it. They implemented the curfew in which they chased people home. If you was 1 minute late, they was arresting people. They arrested the state representative.
Yeah, that was last week, son. And she faced that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
people need to hear that, man.
And it was a lot of people that was just scared. A lot of people, I tell you right now, Kentucky is a very resilient place. These brothers and sisters, prior to us even getting there, had been in the streets every day since Breonna had got killed, and they had this place called the Square, in which they named it Breeway, they officially named Debrisway, and they was out there every day, and they was trying to take their energy from them, and they were trying to deplete them and locking them up for no reason. One of the young brothers, he was murdered. We don't even know exactly what happened. If it was, how it happened. A lot of activists down there had been getting shot and injured, locked up on a regular. So it was very, very dangerous, man. Every day we didn't know. They had white militia that was camped out inside of certain places that we would be. They would camp out in the bushes. One time they even bust a shot at us, and somebody had to chase them. So it was like ground zero, man. It was really serious.
It's like that, absolutely.
I want to say something. I got to bounce soon, but I want to be able.
Mayor, before you leave, I just wanted to say, and that local organizing and affair, looking at Georgia and how they can't even do Souls to the Polls anymore after Stacey Abrams, and how. So you see that local effect and how they went back and changed it from the state level because of what was going on locally. So I'm sorry.
Absolutely. No, that's right. That goes to what I'm, what I really want to talk about. And I think my son, when he said, they was trying to break their spirit, that's the reality of it. Like, and that's why, being able to see, you guys up at the Grammys and all these other things is important, right? Because the goal of this thing is to break our spirit, to destroy our resistance, to make you feel this thing is not going to get anywhere. We live in a society where the superstructure is designed. The superstructure, the schools, the media, the journalism, the religious institutions, everything has been designed and organized to teach us that we're nothing, that we can't win, that we will always lose, that we'll always be divided, that we cannot be unified, we can't create anything. And day in and day out, that message is beaten in our head, whether we were cursed because of the Hamitic myth, or whether black dolls are ugly, or whether they don't teach black history or African American history in school, or African history in school. All of these things are designed to break our spirit, right? To do the very things, to make it impossible for you to struggle, impossible for you to organize, impossible for you to do anything, and make you frustrated and angry at one another. Our job is to change that around. That's why the Panthers caught the imagination of so many people, because they resisted in a way that attracted people's attention. Like, look at these guys. Like, look at these ladies. Look at this. What's going on? They're taking control of their own situation, where the infrastructure and the superstructure was telling them that this could not happen. That's why that's important, because there are 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds who need to see that we can stand up for ourselves, we can organize it, we can make it to the Grammys, not just jumping up and down, shaking our butt, saying whatever, but because we fighting for liberation for our people in these communities, in these cities, to give them inspiration and hope that this thing can be turned upside down. And that's what people need to understand. And instead of dealing in this kind of hatred that they want us to deal in, we should benefit from that. You benefit from that. Matter of fact, at your next meeting, you should be showing the Tamika Rowley speaking event at the end, and then lead into a discussion about.
Right. We're gonna be putting it up in a minute.
That's right.
That's what you should be doing. And if you were sophisticated enough and serious enough, you would do that. You would make that happen, right? Because that's critically important. And that goes back to what we talked about, Laid, about what the Puerto Rican political prisoners.
Yes.
The fight between just organizing the
right in front
and the activists in the community. We have yet to be able to do that. We tried in 1972, the National Black Political Convention, to bring all of those ideas and heads and people together to create a strategy, a plan, and since then, these people have been working hard to make sure something like that never, ever happens again, where we get all of these folks to the table and begin figuring out how do we strategize to move this thing forward and get ourselves out of these situations that we're in. We are so geared on fighting each other that we miss our enemy all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
That's why. That's
They in the
why
room
it's.
with us. They could be in the room with us, and we'll go past them and hit one another.
Yep.
Mayor
That's
Barack,
why it's so important, man.
I always remind you of the speech that you gave and say we have an agenda of 10 things and we agree, but we get to number 3 because we don't agree on 3. Everything just falls apart instead of sitting applied and
That's
just
right.
keep. I always remember.
That's right. That's what we do.
Well,
We agree on 7 things, except 3 of them. 6 items we agree on 7. 2 of them we don't agree on. We pull guns out of each other, as opposed to figuring this thing out, man. We don't have any more time left, so we got to be strong, brother. I support the sister. My son, know I support him and all the work that they're doing over there and all around the country. And it makes me proud that they're out there doing it. It makes me proud because I can't do it. I
Proud
couldn't
of
go out there and do the stuff that they're doing. And they got to do it. Somebody got to do it. And I'm glad they're doing it. They need to be supported for it. And I understand the sister's frustration, but there's some serious political education classes going on in our communities to get our people aware who their enemies and their friends are.
I appreciate it.
And that's why it's so important not to get caught up in the cancel culture. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Well put.
You know,
Well put.
because
Well put. Well
I'm gonna
put.
tell you, even before all of this stuff was going on, with the recent allegations and the recent stuff, attacks towards Tamika, just when words were out that she had, she got money or she had some political connections, people were already hating on Tamika before she even had time to even make a mistake. You know what I'm saying? Before she had time to do anything, people were hating on Tamika. And just as my son was talking about, I mean, we've seen the proof of Tamika's work and my son's work. You know what I mean? So to act like all of a sudden that's going to change because she's got money or because, she showed her face on the Grammys or anything like that is ridiculous, man. And we can't get caught up in the cancel culture because just like the mayor said, it's all to break our spirit. It's all to divide us and keep us weak.
What scares me is the mind state that we have as people. A brother that I know for over 20 years, man. He decided to go on, YouTube and talk about me and, and call me all types of names and sellouts and saying I was scamming people, whatever. And he said, when I spoke to I seen him a couple of weeks ago, and he said, when I spoke to my son, he told me he had a doorman in his building. So we just had a regular conversation. He said he had a doorman in his building. And I thought about that. And I said, well, I've been living in the same building for 9 years. So is something wrong that a black man has a doorman in the building? Like, I don't understand the mind state that we think that if we're doing this work, that we should be poor, that we should be broke, that we should look homely, that we should die poor. I don't take any pride that Malcolm X and Martin Luther King died poor. They should have been the richest men in the world. It's no way that people that died for our liberation like that died and their families had to figure out how to survive.
That's right.
So the mindset that we have that the brothers who fight for liberation and willing to give up their life and their freedom should be poor, but the rappers who tell you to go shoot this and do this can come on Instagram with $100,000 and you say he the man and we need to follow their blueprint. It's sickening to me. It really is sickening to me.
My son, Bishop J. I forgot
Well,
what
listen,
book.
y'all. Hold on before y'all go any further. Let's let the mayor leave if he hasn't already left.
Okay.
We know that he left already. Okay. Well, he had to leave.
Yeah.
But go ahead, my son. I mean, you want to say something, Donna?
No, I was just saying to what he was saying. I forgot what book Bishop Jake said, and I'm gonna go back and look it up as we talk. But he said if he preaches one, there was a part in his book and said if I preach one more funeral of a pastor that has a closet full of snakeskin shoes and all of this, but then we got to do a offering to pay for the funeral. We got to get our priorities. We got to get our priorities together in terms of making sure our legacy and that your family is taken care of, because it is unfortunate. And we hear the story of how that these leaders were out here so much serving, whether it was Rosa Parks or whatever, but then when it came time to leave the legacy for their family or prepare for their homecoming, they didn't even do it because they were taking care of the masses and didn't prepare for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, my son, listen, man, we want to appreciate you taking time, to come on the show, man, tonight and be on the
Ed,
mayor's
before my
forum.
son leaves, I want him because he dropped a statement. Where's the link, my son, so we can share the statement?
The link is on it's on my Facebook page, my son Lennon. It's on Tamika's page.
Okay.
It's on YouTube. It's
Okay.
on YouTube. You can go to YouTube to see our full statement that we made.
All right. Okay. We'll make sure we get it out.
So
I appreciate you.
Let me tell you,
And your son, are you back? Are you staying back, or you only stay down there temporarily, or did you permanently relocate?
No,
You're
we
back?
stay down there temporarily, but we go back and forth, throughout the month 2 or 3 times because we're trying to help the local activists build the infrastructure, and just to help them to just organize. They have a lot of energy and a lot of grassroots organizations, and we just been doing trainings and investing in them, so they can continue to do the work needed.
So,
My son, connect you because we have local groups in Brooklyn who do that, and we had them come on and talk to Pop, and just trying to connect young people when they want to get out there and organize and stuff. So I want to make sure we connect you because they do those trainings. So when you need a group of people to go to Georgia or Kentucky's or whatever, the next movement, they do. They're really good at doing that. So I'll make sure we connect you guys.
Okay.
So let me just say, my son, again, man, we appreciate you coming on the mayor's forum. And, I'm not sure if you know, but the mayor is now the president of a mayor's association with mayors from around the country. So, what I'm going to look to do, man, is talk with the mayor offline. And then what we'll probably do is talk about, pulling y'all into a conversation so that, like he said, man, that speech that Tamika gave, instead of folk attacking her, what they should do is take that speech and put it on their Facebook pages, man, and celebrate that she wasn't on there talking about buffoonery, right?
That's right.
But she was talking about uplifting, our people. And we just want to say, man, we love you, brother. You a king to us.
Appreciate it.
And we respect you, your whole hustle, for how you came and changed your whole life. And your level of activism is real. And so for any of the brothers or sisters that would come against y'all, we would first say to them, we love y'all, but we want y'all to be clear. My son don't ride by himself.
Amen.
Right?
Appreciate
Right.
that.
We ride with you and we ride with Tamika. So, brother, anytime you need to come here, I told you before, you home, right?
That's right. You
So
definitely said
anytime
that.
you need to come here, man, you home. Just hit me up like I hit you up and just say, yo, man, we need to, come on the mayor's forum. We need to come on any of the shows, man. Just come on and fellowship with us, man. We got you, bro.
I just gave our tech man the link for y'all statement too. So we getting it right back out.
Well, thank you. I appreciate y'all.
I know when Tamika did that speech. Thanks, my son. When Tamika,
Donna, we gotta let's let my son have the last word because we gotta go. Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you for having me, man. I appreciate everything, man, and I hope everything, continue to do the work you do. Continue supporting us. We need all the support we can. We stand on the shoulders of you guys who've been doing this and continue to do it. So thanks for the support.
We appreciate you, sir. Right on. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
All right. So listen, we get ready to segment. We gotta go to Pamela Chopra. One of our co-hosts. Welcome to the show. She hasn't been on co-hosting with us in a while, but welcome, Pamela. Hope everything is well. So we can get an update from her in terms of what happened with those 2 bills around immigration. So welcome to the show, Pamela.
Hi everyone, so glad to be back. Thank you again for having me. It's been a while. Is my audio okay? Great. And yeah, I think we came out of a very exciting day yesterday. There were 2 bills that passed the House. And one of them is the Dream and Promise Act, HR 6, which allows streamers like myself and TPS recipients to have a pathway to citizenship. And that means that we would immediately get our green cards because we've been in limbo for a while, right? And the second bill is fabulous because it supports a lot of farm workers as well. 1 million farm workers would enter the pathway to citizenship. These are people that have, from day one of COVID-19 outbreak, have still been putting food on our tables, have been taking care of us. We have about 22 million people in the United States that are working in the farm, that are essential workers, and 5 million of them are undocumented immigrants. So it's really important to show up our support, not just by these two pieces of legislation, but future legislation that will continue to take care of all the 11 million undocumented folks that we have in this country. And also, it's time for the Senate to get its act together. So I'm here with that update. It's really great news. And I look forward to, and also, cannot stress enough how fabulous our New Jersey's representatives have been in making sure that they're speaking up for all immigrants in our community. And I thank them again for their vote on both bills yesterday.
Wow.
Look, they don't want to do a pathway to citizenship, but they want the avocados, huh? They want
Avocado.
Hey,
Good
let's
for you.
have it all. Let's have pathways so we can
Avocados
continue
are good
eating
for you.
avocados.
no, yeah, but that's what I'm saying is they don't want to create, but the very people, yeah, the farmers and everything, but they don't want to create a pathway so they can keep getting them avocados. Crazy.
Well,
Pamela, it's been a minute since you've been on with us, right? We were in pre-COVID space back in the studio when you were on with us last. How has it been for you on this walk? How has it been for you, trying to do this kind of organizing under a COVID cover with a lunatic in the White House, leading the lunatic fringe to the center of government in this country? How has it been for you? How have you managed?
Well, I think like many of us, pretty scared off at the beginning of the pandemic. I was thankful that I was in a space where my job allowed me to work from home. So I'm one of those very privileged people that can continue to do my work from there. It's just been a lot of teleconferences, video conferences, phone calls, a lot more than usual. So it is hard to save my sanity. My ears are probably exhausted at this point. I think that I need to have like my ears checked constantly. But other than that, I am thankfully healthy. I was not personally, I didn't have COVID, but I am. But many family members did, so it was very hard financially for a while. I think like many of us in this country have been struggling with just getting the right medicine for our loved ones. So I know how hard that's been. But I think with the new vaccines that have been rolling out, I can say that thank God I qualified to get my vaccine shot in Washington, D.C. I got it 2 weeks ago, and it's like the Johnson & Johnson one. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. And soon all my family members will have all their complete doses as well. So I think it's a time to be more optimistic and be more hopeful that things are turning very slowly, but still turning around.
I think your dog agreed with you. Roo, roo. Yeah. Yeah. So Pamela, I just wanted to ask you a question, just real quick. I want to back up on a couple of things. Since the last time you and I spoke, just in terms of what's going on with the Dreamers and so forth. But I wanted to ask about what's going on at the border, right? Because what you're hearing is that a lot of the children are coming by themselves, right? Not with their parents, but their children, and the children are being turned around, right? Or what they're saying is they don't have any facilities to put the children in. So the question is that what's going on in Washington, and you hear some folks saying that it is miscommunications on the president part, because on one level he's saying come, and now on another level he's saying don't come. Is there a mislevel of communication, or do you think that's just something that's being put out there right now?
So I can't speak for the White House. I can speak like many of you. We've been tracking and keeping tabs of what's happening in our southern border. I think it's important to also look at the history of the past administration, how damaging they've left, and how weak of an infrastructure they've left, even before COVID hit, with many of their executive rulings. But beyond that, with the treaties that they did in order to keep people from safely and legally seeking asylum during the Trump administration meant that people were forced to wait in line in Mexico when that was like an illegal move by international law when someone is seeking asylum. So what we're seeing right now is many families that are seeing the new administration and getting its act together, and like the new administration has a responsibility to fix many of the wrongs that the old one did, but also create better systems at the same time. And again, I can't speak for them because I don't know what's going on inside there, but I can tell you that many families have been able to make it across safely. They've been getting tested on some of our work on the inside. We've been seeing like families actually being able to take flights to like their final destination safely. And I think their priority right now is making sure that they stay together
Wow.
and that we don't create confusion while people are trying to arrive to their final destination. Beyond that, it is a moral imperative to facilitate as many COVID tests and also distribute as many COVID vaccines if people qualify, um, because they are part of our community now. And it's important to safely take care of everyone that's in this country at the moment.
And you said that some of these uh, young people are actually making it to their final destination.
Well, we have been working with families that have been waiting for years under the Trump administration. Like I said, many of them had like to wait in the so when they presented themselves to asylum at the border, they, instead of actually being allowed in and going through the process of that the governments prior to the Trump administration had, they were told to just pick a number and wait in Mexico. And that meant that many people were living in camps and were just waiting for their numbers to be called. So these were already very unsafe conditions for people to wait for. A lot of them, had to also protect themselves, and it was very hard to do that during a pandemic because, again, this time last year, there were so many unknowns about what was happening, right? How it was passing from one person to another. So these families are exhausted. They didn't have the privilege of like staying inside a home or inside even a hotel room waiting in line. Like they were waiting in camps. And I think that the priority has been, especially for the new administration, and we've been encouraging to do this, to safely welcome them and welcome them with dignity. People deserve a warm bed. People need like a hot meal. So our priority is making sure that they know that they're being welcomed with dignity.
And how long have some of these families been in these camps?
Excuse me, sorry, can you repeat the question?
How long have some of these families been in these camps? How long have some of these folks been in those camps?
I can't tell you the exact number. It's just been years.
Wow.
It's been years.
Wow.
Many people seeking asylum are not just coming from Central America, but we've seen people that some history here. But during the World Cup in Brazil, when they were creating the stadium, the Brazilian government sought after nationals from like different African countries, and said, we're gonna give you like really good jobs, etc., to come and build like the stadiums for us for the World Cup. So we saw a lot of people like traveling also from Africa, and Brazilian economy also crashed. Uh, they weren't welcome as promised. So we've seen many people with different languages. So we've also been struggling to many language barriers when we're trying to welcome people with dignity back, like into the United States. So it's not just like how many people are there or how many years they've been there, but it's also many cultures, many backgrounds, and many languages. So, which has, I think, it's a little bit harder because our community organizers are making like really great efforts to try to give people as many resources as possible. So I think that's the whole background of to say like why it's gotten so hard, and why it's also taking so long for people to safely come in here, because there are just so many variables that we're still discovering.
Let me ask this. Why don't we just, because for the benefit of folks who are not as up on the question of immigrant justice, why don't we unpack just what the two bills are bringing to the table?
The unpack the border piece,
No,
you're saying?
the bills, the two bills.
Oh, what the bills that have been put on the table
Yeah.
are. Yes.
What's
So
the butter on the bread? Yeah.
yeah. So there's two bills. One of them is HR 6, Dream and Promise Act. So that covers dreamers, people that have arrived to the United States as children, and that provides them a pathway to citizenship. Many of those dreamers have DACA right now, and we've probably seen DACA in the news, especially in the last 5 years. And DACA, essentially, for someone like me that has DACA, meant that I had to live my life. Sorry, I had to live my life waiting for the government.
Your dog is like, I got DACA too. Don't leave him out. Every time you leave him out, he just starts speaking up. So.
But no, I I had to present myself. Oh, it's a lot over here. I have two dogs right now, and it's not even mealtime. Okay, but I had to present myself every 2 years to a federal government. And that was really hard, like it is right now. So the Dream and Promise Act would actually make it so that I could apply to be a citizen, but before I become a citizen, I need to be a permanent resident. So I would get a green card with this new law that we have. Myself and like 2 million people included. The other bill, the second bill, is the Farm Work Modernization Act. And that bill actually would allow for many people to work in the agricultural industry that are considered essential workers right now, especially as we've been talking about like the food shortage during COVID, to also apply for a pathway to citizenship. So that would cover about 1 million more people. And if we count that, that's 3 million out of the 11 million people that are still in this country without documents. So we really are still needing to fight for many more, for the 8 million remaining. And that's a constant battle. So these two bills are really good wins. It goes to the Senate next, where we have a lot of support as well. But it also means that we need to get more backing for additional bills that would protect the 5 million essential workers that have been in the front line during the COVID-19 pandemic.
So let me ask you, how old were you when President Obama got elected?
It was in, how old was I?
2008.
2008. 2008.
I think it was like
ago.
1918.
So he gets elected. The Dream Act is evolving. You're on what so, and it's evolving and it's built out. So we're at the end of his 8 years. The succession was Hillary, and that it would continue and move forward and evolve. And then suddenly in 2016 it's totally interrupted and you roll back. And now we're getting that 4 years that took us off course. Now we're getting back on track, so to speak, in some sense.
It's hard to say back on track when it's felt like I've been getting pushed back and deprioritized, and not just me, but my family too. So I think what we've seen right now is finally we can get better answers. But I also don't want to forget that we've been winning on immigration. Even under Trump, a lot of his policies, made immigration worse. But when it was presented to the court, even the Supreme Court, we were winning against that administration. So immigration has never been more popular as it is now. Even yesterday, we saw more bipartisan support than under the Trump administration. So that just goes to show that even Republicans are finally freed from those, uh, terms that they were with the president Trump at the time, where they can show their support for good immigration policies.
So
And I
so
think
go ahead, Donna.
was saying that Ed had answered the question you had started answering about the communication or the two messages that are going out, because it's almost like there's a organization, there's a movement where young people are coming to the borders by themselves as opposed to coming as families, and it seems that that's the challenging part, because they don't want to have the young people at the borders by themselves. So is there anything that we need to understand about that?
I think it's important that we think a little bit deeper into our families and what it means to live without security and without protections. Luckily, my family and I were able to travel here together. But many families have to make sacrifices. And I have friends where, one member of the family came in first. And I think that's how I view it when it comes to what's happening at the border right now. We know that people are making a huge sacrifice, and many of them also risking their lives. But at the same time, they're likely looking back and what's waiting for them in their home country or where they were living before was not safe, was not secure. And they want to make sure that they can live, like they're literally fighting for their lives. And that's what I would stress for people that are becoming more familiar with the topic.
Now, Pamela, I don't know if I ever asked you this question, but just curious. Is when your family came to the United States, did they come across the border that way?
So that is a misconception, because about 40% of undocumented immigrants living in this country came in through legal means. And that meant, like, my family, we came with a visa. And many people like us didn't find a solution through immigration status. And it meant that we often overstayed the terms of our visa. So yeah, I didn't come through the border. But I remember as an 11-year-old, going to N Street, meeting a girl from my class whose family and her actually came through the border. And she told me how hard it was. And she was, what, 7 when she did it or so. So I know the pain. I know the fear from her experience having shared. And that is why I've always thought that it's a tremendous sacrifice to want a better life, and go through it through those means.
Well, listen, Pamela, I just want to say we appreciate you for taking some time to come on the show. In a sense, come home, right, and give us an update. So, we appreciate that. And I guess hopefully, we'll be back in the studio now that everyone's getting vaccinated, and hopefully we get to herd immunity. So hopefully next time you come on the show, you'll be back in the studio. Are you in Washington or are you in New Jersey?
I'm in DC, right? Well, right now I'm surprising my mom, so I'm like hiding from her because I'm new in New Jersey. So to surprise her, my sister and I came here, but I live in Washington right now. And yes, God willing, we can be in the studio. I miss people, but I have to say, Ed, like I still find the idea of socializing a little weird. I don't know if people are thinking like that yet. But it's hard for me to talk to strangers nowadays. When I go
Wow.
to the supermarket, I'm like, how do you have a conversation?
Wow.
So yes, I can't wait to see all of you though.
Is that you're afraid because of COVID, or are you just afraid
No, I
because
think it's just bad. It's out of practice.
okay, just whole year just being out of practice. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, again, family, is there any last things you want to say?
Yeah, keep our eyes open, keep our ears open. I've seen how news outlets are also speaking about the issue, and we must remember they are not experts. This is a very complicated issue, and I just ask people to be a little bit more open and a little bit more forgiving. Like I said, many people are sacrificing, and not just my family 20 years ago, but people are still sacrificing their lives in order to obtain, a better day, to have a better day. And that's what we're all fighting for at the end of the day. So
Well, we thank you again, Pamela, for
thank you.
coming on the show. Good to see you,
To have you
and
back. That's right.
we'll see you hopefully next time back. We'll see you next time back in the studio. All right.
Yes.
All right. Now,
Bye.
take care. All right. So we've got about 15 minutes before we get to DJ Rhino. So Zaid, what'd you think about that conversation that we were having, with my son and the mayor? But of course, when he was talking about how dangerous it was, how they were being surveilled, right?
Not just surveilled, getting shot at.
Right. You know what that reminded me of? That reminded me of what they were doing to the Black Panthers back then.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? How he said they were shining lights. How they were shining lights on the house.
Yeah. My folks are on, but this whole thing, these were peaceful, nonviolent, direct action demonstrations, right? And these crazy right wingers, who are all touting their guns and whatnot. It wasn't just that one boy, Kyle Rittenhouse, that went into that march in Kenosha and did some shooting. They were shooting at those folks in Louisville, right? And some folks got killed.
Yeah.
So it was, but they kept coming. The resilience. See, I have somebody close to me that talks about the importance of Black resilience, right? The resilience of our people at that particular moment. I'm so proud of our young people at that particular moment. Even though Don and I were just coming off the damn floor with this COVID mess, right. I had to get out in the street.
Right.
I had people telling me, you shouldn't be doing that. I said, the drum has been sounded. Babies are calling. If I got to help them, I got to help them. If I go out this way, I'll take it going out this way. But I can't be silent. Now, as soon as the summer calmed down, I took my behind back inside.
Yeah.
But that's what we're talking about. I mean, and when my son and Tamika came into that in May, Brianna got killed in March.
Right.
March 13th. This is a whole almost 3 months later that they get involved in using their platform to bring national attention to how people haven't been in the street banging with these police on a daily basis and not getting coverage.
Right.
And almost saying George Floyd, but don't forget 2 months ago, before George Floyd,
Ahmaud Arbery, that story was suppressed for months. We found out after the fact. We had to catch up with that, before we could raise hell.
Right.
So I mean, but I mean,
and talking about Tamika, God is doing the work in her. I remember, what's the young man in Baltimore?
Freddie Gray got killed by the police.
Freddie Gray. Mm-hmm. I remember Tamika was going to do something, and just as Freddie Gray happened, she pulled into Baltimore. I never, but she was going to DC. Maybe she might have been on her way to DC to do something. And as soon as she got into the Baltimore, city limits, the Freddie Gray had began to arrival, and she just her and the team were right there. So I tell you, God is truly doing a work in her, and I mean, I remember talking to her because and this was we were over at Open Line with Chairman Valari, and to hear her tell the story, and because sometimes you're looking at things in retrospect, and as she began to, and she realized, like, yeah, we were going to Baltimore to go to a meeting, and then this happened, and just to hear and the emotion that overcame her is, God is seriously using her for such a time as this.
Yeah, and this is not the first time she's getting shot at with all this with this bitterness either. Let's remember when her and Linda Saucer and tried to pull them that Million Woman Gathering together, right?
Mm-hmm.
They came at her because she had a relationship with Miss Farrakhan.
Right. That's
right?
exactly why.
And the white women tried to take over the whole thing, with their privileged selves, and she had to stand the ground. She had some issues with your boy Mr. Sharpton. That's when she first really started making her break and making her way. She goes back to Tamika, and Tamika's still quite young. She's young enough to be my daughter, right? But Tamika's name started popping up. We started the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition in 2009. Several years before that, we had the Essex County Anti-Violence Coalition, right? And she was doing, anti-violence work in New York. Young, she was just, that voice was just starting to pick up a little bit. She was very young back then. So she's been consistent in her growth and consistent in her march and this is 2021 now. That's better than, that's a good 15 years for her. And I tell young folks all the time that reputation does matter. And one of the things that'll help you with reputation is being disciplined in your commitment to your principle and being consistent about your work.
Yep. Zaid, so is there something you wanted to play before your guest came on?
Yes, I dropped it. I dropped it in for Mike. He had it up. Yeah, he can go ahead.
Okay.
So
Mike, why don't you play it, and then you can bring his guests on as that's playing.
It's Mumia.
At the center of empire.
This is for Jonathan.
With the rise of the Trump presidency, few events were more remarkable than the 2017 white nationalist rallies in Charlottesville, Virginia. Here we saw the naked face of white hatred, fear, and anxiety, seemingly inspired by a presidency brought into being in part by the false claim that the nation's first black president wasn't born in the U.S. Who could guess that less than 4 years later, another white riot would erupt, this time at the nation's capital, the halls of Congress, where yet another false claim, that of a stolen election, would provide the spark to a flame of insurrection. These two furious events form bookends of time, a 4-year period of a presidential term marking the malice unleashed by Trump. They also provide insight into white entitlement, the deep-seated belief that public space is white space. They attacked the Capitol in the light of day, shattering windows and crashing through doors. They beat cops like drums, whipped them with batons, sticks, and flagpoles, and dragged them down steps. And they did so on camera. One cop was later interviewed and said he was being assaulted at the Capitol by protesters who said they liked and supported police, especially during summer conflicts with groups like Black Lives Matter. The cop remarked that many of the Capitol protesters suffered from what he called cognitive dissonance. But guess what? Among those attacking Congress were active duty and retired cops from across America. Amazing. Trump played the role of America's Caligula, the Roman emperor, vain, petty, cruel, mean, who strived to humiliate Roman citizens, who hated all of those who would not worship him, ruled for 4 years until his armed guards dispatched him. King Trump waged war against Congress and earned himself his second impeachment for incitement to insurrection. From Imprisoned Nation, this is Mumia Abu Jamal. These commentaries are recorded by Noel Hanrahan of Prison Radio.
Now I have to catch my breath. And I say that for several reasons. One, that we cannot allow that to be Mumia's last commentary. That's number one. Number two, I want to shout out a journalism colleague and comrade, Sally O'Brien, the WBAI where we lived. Sally, many years ago, better than 2 decades ago, was the first on WBAI to run Mumia's commentary at the beginning of every one of her shows. And made Mumia's commentaries something that folks in public radio started picking up all over the country. I want to shout her out for that. And then I say that, because I mean, with the circumstance that we're facing with Mumia at this particular moment is a grave one. And let me just be uplifting and transcending, because we fight to win, right? In the previous segment with the mayor, we were talking about the community survival programs of the Black Panther Party. Right. And one of the things that was very important to those community survivors were the medical clinics, right? Medical clinics where the Panthers reached out to doctors who cared about their community, who volunteered to do sickle cell tests, lead poisoning tests, full medical, examinations and so forth and whatnot, right? And that's the beginning of what we call people's medicine, and there were legal clinics that became the beginning of what we call people's law. And you saw that big time in Chicago with the People's Law Clinic that was put together under the inspiration of the work of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party under the leadership of none other than Fred Hampton himself, right? The gentleman who I'm about to introduce you to is not just Mumia's doctor, but he is a doctor in that tradition. I've been letting everybody know that you ain't just Mumia's doctor, that you are a people's doctor, right? Right. A brother with a Harvard, coming with a Harvard degree, could be living a very comfortable bourgeois privileged life, but he's working hard for the least of these. And when you commit yourself to try and attend to somebody as controversial as a Mumia Abu Jamal, there can be a price to pay with that. That's a sacrifice. So I want y'all to know that here's a brother, role model that we definitely need our young folks to see, that there are ways that you can develop the most advanced, important skill sets that our community needs and come back to our community and really use them and make a difference. So with that, I want to introduce Dr. Ricardo Alvarez to All Politics Are Local. It's good to have you aboard, beloved. It's good to have you aboard.
Greetings. Let me begin, Saeed, by saying thank you for you. And it's just been a pleasure to hear the brilliance analysis that I've been hearing over the last hour. And it's refreshing to be in a space where we can, speak about an analysis of state power from a perspective of its aggression to our communities. And I want to say to preface any discussion about Mumia's well-being and health, I understand that it's my responsibility to report back in relationship to his health. But to do that, it's impossible not to begin by just recognizing who he is. So when we hear his voice, it was his voice some 26 years ago that made me stop and say, who is this man? And that began a relationship with Pam and Ramona Africa, and the MOVE organization of some 26 years duration. which has been one of a powerful education in understanding the relationship of the state power and its aggression to our communities. I want to also say that we come from a perspective that recognizes that Mumia is a spiritual warrior. And he speaks truth to power in a way that is very threatening to power. And it's impossible to speak about Mumia's medical condition without openly recognizing
Make it plain.
that the state has attempted to execute him since 1981. And they've attempted to do it illegally. They've attempted to do it through the courts. But as Ramona Africa teaches us, these are man-made laws. And it is one of the most remarkable journeys of the distortions of legal thinking in order to justify what is fundamentally a profound racist attempt to execute Mumia. And it's in this context that we examine his medical care. Mumia is in the condition in which he suffers physical illness. I was just recently called, not as his personal physician, as I can't personally see him, but to be in consultation as it relates to his medical condition, specifically with regard to the new development of COVID and the new development of congestive heart failure. Mumia already has suffered from cirrhosis of the liver resulting from hepatitis C, for which a legal challenge had to occur, in which it was recognized that that cirrhosis was a result of withholding direct-acting hepatitis C medications.
That's right.
And this is harm from the state. And in addition to that, we're recognizing that Mumia, through negligence in his care in the infirmary, had a elevated glucose, which was not attended to, and for which he received a series of injections some 6 years ago approximately, in which he had to go into the intensive care unit in a diabetic ketoacidosis. This is all well documented, and there's an ongoing case. To speak about Mumia in any context is to speak fundamentally about a political prisoner. And as such, we're examining that Mumia's care also includes a condition of his skin, a severe, debilitating skin condition for which there's an intense rash and itching. And when we speak about the care of Mumia, we have to recognize that Mumia shares with us a hesitation to be hospitalized in the care of this condition, because in doing so, they follow what they call is their standard protocol, which is shackled in 4-point restraints. So we can see then that we have now documentation that's going to the United Nations to address both the 4-point restraints, to address the horrendous conditions of COVID in prisons. And we see Mumia's case from a perspective of not just his health, but the larger issue of the healthcare of other political prisoners and the larger issue of the care of our elders in what we call COVID prisons.
Yes.
Now, we have to also recognize that as a physician coming to bear in addressing Mumia's care, I'm part of a profession for which we have been what I would call, and it's actually documented by Robert J. Lifton, who wrote The Nazi Doctors, in which he examined what's called a malignant neutrality. So what that means is basically, if we examine the last 4 decades, we have witnessed a rate of incarceration at such extreme levels that we are the nation with the highest rate, absolute number, percentage of incarceration of any modern nation, and it's approaching historical records. This has occurred with clearly documented racist and classist intent, as well documented through Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow. And we understand it as a fundamental aspect of structural racism, which has emerged, in which there's many compelling political polarities to keep this the same. This window right now, I'm so grateful, Zaid, for the beautiful space that you're creating to give us an opportunity to speak to a window right now in which we're seeking COVID compassion, a way of understanding the conditions in prison, to recognize that there is a compelling public health measure to release our elders in prison, for which the safety concerns are not the same that we would have otherwise, because of their age and their infirmities. They do not pose the same safety concerns, and it offers a way of addressing a resolution to what has been this mass incarceration. So as a witnessing professional, I want to speak then to a summary of Mumia's case to say that when you have a diagnosis of congestive heart failure in someone who is 68, that's not the same as if it were someone who is 68 on the outside. Why? Because there's actually data to show that there is a phenomenon called accelerated aging under the stresses of incarceration, for which a person's physical age is actually, their physiological age is actually 10 or 15 years older. So for Mumia, he's suffering from a condition for which in the norm, there's a 50% mortality rate in 5 years. And he's suffering that on top of cirrhosis, on top of COVID, and on top of his other medical conditions. So this is a very important time for us to come together and mobilize to free Mumia, who is our spiritual warrior. And they talk about him as a public intellectual. He's a brilliant person who is innocent. And we can't stress that enough. He is innocent. And this was a deeply racist trial, which has put him in prison. I'm going to pause there. And again, I want to thank you for giving this space to share his update.
You opened up with full blast. And that was right. And there was so many places to go with what you gave us, but you gave us the gist of what we need to know. I put on our screen that I want my jersey, because this is a Jersey-based show, Ricardo. But I want everybody to understand that wherever you're at, there are things that you can do. But I put we put up the number to Governor Tom Wolf, and those of us who understand the importance of grassroots lobbying, we need to be writing this governor and demanding the release of Mumia Abu-Jamal and all aging prisoners. But for those of us in Jersey, we have a particular vantage point, right? And what is that vantage point on this? Is that Jersey is one of the few states that actually did some, right? We've got a governor too, and he was punky about it. He dragged his feet. I'm talking about Mr. Murphy, all due respect, right? But at some point it came together through legislation, right? And a significant number of men and women were released from prison to take pressure off of those institutions to contain its spread, so that it can happen, and everybody benefits from that having happened, right? So I want folks to understand the strategic place that we may have in this particular historical moment for Mumia. There's so many places. I want to also put a pin in the whole question of when Mumia had this that was diagnosed with Hep C, right? And that was one of the most crazy illustrations of how barbaric, how fascistic, and how genocidal, I would dare say, right? Prison medicine is, medical apartheid is in American prisons. But because Mumia was got diagnosed, right? And because of his, folks knew who he were. They didn't want to just deny him the treatment for which there is a cure. For which there is a cure. There was some 5,000 to 6,000 other prisoners with Hep C, all of whom could have died or certainly have been put into an irreparable place with their lives, because that's what Hep C does to your liver if it is not treated. But they wanted him so bad, they would let some thousands of others let this disease fester when it was curable. And the cure is as simple as medication that can be given to them in pills. It was a mercy from the God of our ancestors, I would dare say, and the power of the people, that we got that critical legal victory in Pennsylvania courts in Scranton, Pennsylvania at that time, because had we not, he would be gone, and legions of others would be gone already. Pennsylvania, Governor Wolf, a liberal fox, Democrat, if you will, right? 100 people have already died in prison as a consequence of the spread of COVID, right? So it's time to stop, appeasing the backward sector of this country and dare to be something other than that, because that's what this last election was supposed to be about. So I want folks to understand that in our hands, on our watch, is the responsibility of saving one of our freedom fighters' lives. So make those calls, consider actions to do, right? We can talk about that towards the end of this. I want my colleagues to get in with some questions, because I'll go buck wild on this, because this is where I get.
So Dr. Alvarez, Ed Riley. So I was wondering if you could explain to me, because I think that when you said it, I mean, graphically, I tried to imagine this 4-point restraint. What is that? I mean, can you explain that? Because it sounds, I'm hearing the word barbaric. I'm hearing the word inhumane. Like, explain that.
Yes. Well, let me share with you that I learned about this through Dr. Johanna Fernandez, who is a professor at Baruch and the author of the book, The Young Lords, and is one of Mumia's primary.
We had here a couple weeks ago. They know her.
Yeah. And what emerged is, when we were discussing what are the medical options for him, she revealed the hesitation based on the fact that his experience was so traumatic. So I want you to imagine what it is like to be hospitalized for 3 days, in which they pulled off about 20 to 30 pounds of fluid and 10 liters of fluid from the congestive heart failure, which was affecting his breathing. And he's placed in 4-point restraints. And I haven't established yet whether that's actually shackles or not. But he's placed in 4-point restraints, and his body suffers from a condition for which there is a chronic, severe itching.
That's right.
And I think what happens is, and this is why we use the word a malignant normality. We accept this as a standard, as standard practice, normal. But it really is a kind of pathology that results from the massive incarceration and the mindset of incarceration that we have in this country. And I think that there's an opportunity for the medical community to start examining structural racism now. There's an opening now that has resulted from a tremendous amount of work that I think you're all doing and people on the front line are doing to expose the violence of Black body men and women through police brutality, but also to expose the larger systemic forces of racism that exist. So Julia Wright, who is the daughter of Richard Wright, has been, I want to acknowledge her work and the work of our international colleagues. She's been working on a document that I think just got submitted to the UN the other day, in which we're attempting to address that along with the matter of the conditions of COVID in prisons to them. But yes, that's actually the description. They're effectively shackled in 4 points for the duration of their hospitalization.
And let me ask, I want to add this for our listeners' benefit, right? Is that you're not getting this in the Daily News.
Correct.
You're not getting this in the Star Ledger. You're not getting this in the Philly papers, right? You're not getting this on CBS and FOX and ABC, right? The alternate progressive journalism outlets like this are important to our people and our struggles now as they've ever been.
Correct.
Right. One of the reasons why we have this international campaign for Mumia's freedom and why Mumia is still alive because of that international campaign is that because the national media order in its racist dimensions has effectively erased and whited out the story as if it doesn't exist. And when when it creeps into those spaces, it creeps in with all the racist baggage that villainizes the target and victim that Mumia is and does nothing to undress the depth of racism, prosecutorial misconduct, and judicial misconduct that he faced when he went into court for his life and found himself on death row for almost 30 years.
Correct.
So I want everybody to appreciate where we are with this. Just having this discussion and this medium at this moment is something to not sneeze at. So everybody should certainly appreciate what we have here. And especially if you're listening to All Politics for the first time, make it your business to tune in on the regular, right? We don't come light. We don't come light here. We come right. We come tight, right? So Dr. Alvarez. No, go ahead. Come on, Donnie, because you hadn't said anything. Come on, you ask your question.
Dr. Alvarez, thank you for being here tonight. But when we started off the conversation, Zaid talked about the people's doctor. And then I began to think about the people's attorney. And I thought about Brian Stevenson. And then you being the people's doctor, Dr. Alvarez. And then I thought about the people's educator. And I'm thinking about Marilyn Zuniga. And your common point, is just fighting for people who can't fight for themselves. And the work that you guys in grouped in are like, as I said in the beginning, could be doing some, well, this is lofty work, but by America's terms or whatever, the work that you're doing is the people, the work of the people. And I'm forever grateful because these, of course, we won't know about Mumia in the way we should know about him until we can tell him so he can get it himself and get his flowers. So I just want to say thank you because this work is just, it's hard work. And it's very unfortunate. We talk about how these police killings, like the police won't get locked up or have to serve time, but then they'll pay them a settlement or whatever the case, and it's with the taxpayers' dollars. And I mean, I can imagine the medical costs that this is costing taxpayers to have to take care of Mumia, where he could be home with loved ones and be healing at a faster rate because he will be in a different atmosphere. So thank you, and just keep sounding alarm so people can understand and one day get it.
Yeah, thank you, Donna, so much for your comments. And I just want to share with you that to be in healthcare in Western medical model, for me, my grounding at Harvard was as a student of medical sociology. And I was interested in medical ethics, and I was interested in understanding how it is that a professional organization comes into being. And that historical record and the origins of Western medicine was very much related to capitalism and Rockefeller medicine, and literally. And there's a historical point when that evolved. So I come from that perspective also of having gone to an institution where Don Pedro Albizu Campos, because I have my background is I have a mixed ancestry, But coming up in Washington Heights, I had understood who he was as a freedom fighter for the Puerto Rican island. And they speak about it from a perspective of, as soon as you get there, they line you up in benches and tell you how you're so special, and you're here because of who you are. And there were many of us who came up from the ghettos of this, declining empire, basically, into this elite institution, understanding that we're there because there was a struggle before us. We're there on the shoulders of others before us. And so for me, when you examine the institutional relationships of medicine, it operates from a place of a deep conservatism, and it operates from a place of racism as well. And so when we examine the healthcare of Mumia and providing counsel, it is impossible not to do it from a context of a defense of his right to life as a basis of beginning healthcare consultation. We begin with the premise that validates that one of the psychological ways that you inflict harm is by denying the reality of a suffering of a patient or a person. And in the case of Mumia, we see this being exhibited through, for example, Larry Krasner, when he takes 39 years of litigation under the racist Judge Sabo and begins with a premise that says Mumia was brought to the hospital and resisting arrest. That's a cruelty from a medical perspective when you understand that he had a bullet shot through his wound. His head was rammed into a pole. He was brought to the ER, and then Dr. Regina Kudemo acknowledges that she saw a police officer bringing his foot down onto his body and having him groan. Dr. Anthony Coletta is with him the entire time, and then they have the audacity to come up with a confession that they remember 2 months later. Now that's an insult to our intelligence. And that's also a harm. That's a direct harm for the trauma suffered by Mumia. This state has attempted to execute him from the beginning. And as medical professionals, all we need to do is read that testimony to root ourselves and orient ourselves that his only treatment right now is freedom.
Go ahead.
And so Zaid, I just want to ask Dr. Alvarez this question. So, because when we think about the treatment of prisoners, right, even in the Geneva Convention, right, they had a series of treaties, right, based around how, right, prisoners are to be treated. And are we saying that Mumia is being treated less than someone during the times of war would be treated in terms of his health?
I want you to know that this is one of the distortions of capitalism, where Mumia may be receiving, medication that from outside standards may meet proper protocol. And that's part of what we're doing. So after this call, I'll be getting on a call with some brilliant physicians from the East Coast, including hepatologists, and we're making sure that he's getting his, ultrasounds every 6 months and monitoring and getting this medication and that. I want to say that it's not so much that he's not getting at this point, with this level of vigilance and monitoring, that he's not getting proper standards. As a matter of fact, just a couple of hours ago, I was just on a call with Johanna and the medical lawyer, and I just got access to the records. So I'll be reviewing all of that. And I have consultants who I've reviewed his care with for dermatology, and I'll be reviewing them for cardiology. So it's not so much that he may not at this point be getting proper standards of care. In the past, there was clear neglect within the prison infirmary. And that's not a condemnation of all the doctors who work in the prison system. There's some with great conscience trying to, saying, I'm stepping into a space that I know is very vulnerable patients, and I'm going to do it conscientiously. But what I want to say is, if you are getting care in a prison system where you have mass incarceration, and there's clear evidence that this nation in the last 4 decades has moved to a place of incarceration based on clear evidence of racism and clear evidence of supporting a political agenda, which is supported by the Fraternal Order of the Police and the correctional officers unions and the political powers that be, and all of the corporations that supports this prison industrial complex. If you're receiving care in that context, then one of the first things we have to acknowledge is to validate that any prisoner receiving care in that context is having a healthy response to distrust. And we see that within COVID. I mean, even here, when we had a UCSF, Dr. Bree Williams, who does brilliant work through the Amends Project on doing the research and data on elders in prison. And she was saying that when they tackled the problem of COVID, prisoners were making rational decisions to say, why am I going to share with you I have COVID if you're going to put me in solitary confinement? Why might I not have access to ask for help? Why am I going to share with you if I have COVID if you're going to have these punitive measures? And why am I sharing with you COVID if we're in this state of overcrowding where I may be left in a ward with 38 other people who have COVID in one bathroom? That may have been the case with Russell Maroon Schultz, and we're looking at that. So these are the things that we want to say is the structural racism component in the context of healthcare. You could be given the most advanced medicines left and right. Mumia had a fight. He had a fight, and thank God he did, because it affected all the others with hepatitis C. They were denying that. But
That's
even
right.
if he gets it, he's
That's
getting it in the context of unjust imprisonment. That's the main message I want to give.
Yeah, that's just, and this, I told you, bro, this would go fast, and this as low as we can get. We can go on this and do this another hour. I'm glad you mentioned Russell Maroon Schultz, because one of the things I talked to my Panther comrades and elders is that if we actually do this for Mumia, right, and then do this in the right way, we will be rescuing 2 political prisoners. Russell Maroon Schultz is Mumia's comrade. They both came out of the Philly chapter of the Black Panther Party. Russell Maroon Schultz is one of the most feared of our political prisoners. He was the true Maroon for sure, the unplackable Maroon. That's what we call him and whatnot. And Maroon has been inside since 1972. He is facing stage 4 colon cancer and COVID.
Correct.
Right? And he
Correct.
is 77 years old. He's even
Correct.
older than Mumia, right?
Correct.
Strong as they come and will, right? But you advance age and these diseases start attacking you under these sterile, conditions, stuff happens, right?
Correct.
So lives are on the line literally as we speak,
Correct.
right? So we're calling everybody to sound the drum. You have the number to and I should have had the address, and I'll put that on our Facebook page afterwards. But you have the number to call Governor Wolf's office, right? We'll be doing Twitter campaigns. It's April 24th, Mumia's birthday. We are going to do a massive demonstration and shut Philadelphia down like we haven't in some time, because this is where we are with this, right? I want to shout out your son Santiago, right? Who's jumped in this, all fours, and has become a force on his own that we appreciate, right? When we did the update, when we had Imani Miles, a young law student at Rutgers Law School with us, right? They were organizing the Jersey side of what Santiago was doing on the San Francisco side. On the 26th of April, they are doing they're going after progressive DAs, right? DAs saying that they're coming in on the premise of cleaning up corrupt, racist, prosecutorial misconduct places and spaces in the offices that they come to occupy, right? And he is already engaged Chesia Bodine, whose father is still in prison, right? His mother and father were both political prisoners. David Gilbert is still in prison. And Chesia responded, of course, and called Krasner, okay? Right? So I want folks to look forward to that and appreciate what folks are trying to do. The support is coming in from all over, right? Mike just put up my op-ed that I'm going after several people. I'm going after the
the NNPA, the National Network of Black Newspaper papers, because the black press has been kind of limp on this all these years, right? I'm going after Sean King, right? Who basically did a sales pitch for money for Krasner and pitching Krasner questions like, let's assume Mumia is guilty for a minute, right? And I have problems whether or not he's innocent or not. Just giving Krasner a pass on this whole thing as we continue to see an incestuous relationship between some of us in the Democratic Party, which is, so what if Mumia dies? We're going to elect Krasner again anyway. Are we serious with this? But that's exactly the backwardness of the political stage on which this is taking place too. So let me wind down right now. Dr. Ricardo Alvarez, I want to thank you supremely.
I want to thank
what
you.
You're doing. I'm trying to figure out how our paths haven't crossed already, right? I've been with Sam for 31 years. You've been on this for 25 years. I don't know how I'm just getting to you now, right? But I'm glad we finally are, because we got to turn it up together, right?
Yeah. Santi's on another call right now. So
yeah, I know. I was trying to get y'all together.
He has me on my job. I had to make sure I put in the chat, letmumiaout.com, Linktree Mumia, and the JamalJournal.com.
Yes,
so people who want to start getting really informed, you looked at that Jamal Journal. That is a project
all the evidence is right there.
And we have a lot of resources. And I also want to thank you for all your help and support of the youth. I think that you're a very powerful role model for the youth. And I know Santi looks up to you, and we're grateful for all the work that you're all doing. Thank you.
But wait, hold on a second. Ed, you got to ask him the question.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we got that all important question, Dr. Alvarez. What we want to know is, right now, as you know, we're the #1 political hip hop radio talk show, right?
Yeah.
All important question. You ready?
Okay, it's got to be about music. Go.
You got it. We want to know what you rocking to right now. What hip hop song are you listening to right now?
Okay, first of all, I want to say that one of the early influences for us was first of all was Michael Franti, because he would come to one concerts. Okay. So when the move would come over to San Francisco, this was sort of headquarters. We'd be going to the 911 concerts that he was doing in San Francisco, and that has been a big influence for me. But I really love also Jurassic 5, what they're doing on Freedom, where they that shout out on Mumia. I also and I recall, in terms of music as it relates to Mumia, it goes way back and it's evolving now and it's opening up. And I really appreciate, Santi and making that connection with Vic Mensa and the shout outs and all of that. And I have to say, for my own personal style, I love the sort of Marvin Gaye Motown. It's just where I go. I'm sorry. That's like,
That's all good. Yeah.
Well, that's actually our theme song. So we, you would have heard the beginning, what's going on.
What's going on? There you go.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Alvarez, I want to say, man, it was a real pleasure having you on the show. And I'm sure Zaid would extend to you our open door policy to someone like yourself. Anytime, my brother, you're welcome to come to the show. Our Puerto Rican brother, listen, man, we say stay in the fight, keep the fight, and stay on it, brother.
I'm on it. Much respect.
Love and respect. All right, beloved.
On the move.
On the move. Out of town. Free Mumia, free them all.
Free them all.
Power to the people.
All right, brother. All right, y'all. Y'all know y'all listening to All Politics Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. Yo, Zaid, that was a dope interview, my brother.
It was a loaded show, and we just getting the Rhino stuff too.
Yeah,
it was a loaded day, beloved. It's a good show, absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Catch my breath.
Yeah, it's what'd you say, Rhino?
Oh no, I didn't say anything yet.
Oh yeah. So I got to tell you, Zaid, it's becoming strong, heavy, and black, bro.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And it felt like from the moment we started, brother, it just felt like it was so strong. Like, unfortunately, man, I was thinking about this concept in my head, where, you know, when Malcolm said that, you know, if you having black coffee and you put some cream in it,
integrated with
no
cream.
longer,
That's right.
yeah, it ain't no longer as strong as it was. And I just felt like there was no cream in this nowhere.
That's right.
You know.
Too
But
black,
Saeed,
strong.
we're gonna throw it over to Rhino. And,
What you got? What you got, DJ?
Brother.
Peace, peace. What's good, y'all?
Peace, Rhino.
All right.
All right.
You know, one of the issues I had, Rhino, was I was just saying, man, what took Nas so long to get a damn Grammy? You heard what I said, Rhino? Yeah, it took Nas, you know, almost 30 years to get a Grammy.
The Grammys is what took them so long. You hear me?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
The Grammys is what took them so long. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, we've been praising Nas since his very first album.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Something, you know, you have a generation of people who look at Nas's second album. It was written as a lot of us look at his first album, Illmatic. You know what I mean? Illmatic was #1 for me. That's an infinite classic forever. I mean, you know, but Nas is one of those intellectual artists, man, that you know, he can talk the streets, he can talk metaphysics, he can talk whatever. You know what I'm saying? And you know, he needs to get that just due, man. But you know, the Grammys is the Grammys, so I'm, you know, none of that surprised me all through these years. Him not getting the Grammy, I was actually surprised that he got it this year.
How about that? Are you up on Nas's father?
Oh yeah, Olu
Dara.
Yeah, bro. Yeah,
blues man.
Yeah, and you know, Olu Dara, he played on Nas's first album too.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, he played on a couple of Nas's albums, but the first album, Life's a Bee, he played the one.
So he is definitely the fruit. The fruit don't fall far from the tree. Where's Madam Donna go? I saw some.
I'm right here. Yeah.
But
you know what?
You disappeared. We want you to ask the question.
Yeah, this computer thing, but I'm plugged in now, so it should be a lot better. But when we were back with the mayor on, and something came to mind, and DJ Chillax, during the quarantine, and I sent it out to us a couple of times, but he literally went in the lab, and I sent it to you, Rhino, but he did that speech that Tamika did. She's like, I don't give a damn about Target, and he, you know, put it in with music and everything. He did a nice part, and I have to say, shout out. What you said?
Did a mix.
Yeah, he did a beautiful. It was called the Quarantine Mix, but he got a nice part of her speech, and this was during the George Floyd. But that mix, do you remember that, Rhino? Yeah, and I just remember, and you know, and it helps because as you for persons who are not tuned in to listening to the news or whatever, but they were still able to get it because they were listening to the music. So, you know, shout out to the DJs who did, because you do it during Martin Luther King birthday, y'all put in his speeches, and I think how that's a very artistic way of bridging, you know, current news with music. So.
Right. And we did it before. Remember, we did it between 80, I would say between 88 and 92. That was that conscious music era in hip hop, and we did it then. We had different ministers, you know, from the nation and all of that would collab with rap artists and stuff back then. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, the activism and all of that was always a part of it. You know what I mean? So it's no different for Tamika to be a part of this now. You know, for my sound to be connected with Tamika, you know what I mean? It's that relationship has always been there, you know, and so it's important to see that. And it was important to see her with Killer Mike and Lil Baby.
Okay. Yeah, they go ahead. I'm sorry.
In the chat. Yeah, that was a strong piece. It was strong for that.
Did Mike ever post? Did Mike even do? Did he show a little piece of that?
I don't know that he did yet.
Okay.
Mike. But nah. I mean, you know, the Grammys is the Grammys. So you know, you gotta expect what you know what they do. You can't be surprised by none of that. But again, still, congratulations to Nas for his win, because he is long overdue, well deserved. And King's Disease is a good album. It's a good album. It's a nice piece. If you guys haven't heard it, check it out. But
well, we'll go. But go ahead, keep talking so you can run that. But go ahead, keep.
Nah, so I mean, other than that, though, and also, since we on the Grammys, real quick, I know a lot of people were shocked. There's a lot of mixed feelings and the other, but since we congratulating people, and I want to keep it positive, I want to say congratulations to Megan Thee Stallion for getting her win, also. You know what I'm saying, for doing that joint with Beyonce. I actually like the joint. I like that. So, I'm music in the vibe of it. So, congratulations to them.
Awesome.
And they made Beyonce and Taylor breaking new records.
Yeah.
Beyonce, and Taylor Swift. Right.
Most definitely. Now I didn't see the performance, but I heard the mixed feelings about the performance between Cardi and Megan Thee Stallion too. I heard it wasn't really a family performance, from what I understand. I didn't see it, but that's what I heard.
You know what I begin to think of? I think about Josephine Baker, and I thought about also was that Motown 25 when Diana Ross came out, and she was like, y'all gyrating and I just think it's because Zaire, you're an artist. What do people think of like Josephine Baker or Eartha Kitt when they would perform back then?
Yeah, right. Like what do people think about them back then?
Well,
because you think about some of the rules and stuff back then, some of the traditions back then. I'm sure there was some people that were against
our folks. White folks have always objectified our bodies, militarily with the police, medically as guinea pigs, right? And sexually with our men as being breeding bucks, and our women being, what they have done to our women on the stage. And that did play out and continues to play out in the entertainment industry if we're not careful. And those are some of the things that those of our queens who went into the arts, being beautiful women, had to go through, right? And Josephine Baker, let us remember, exiled herself as many Afro-American artists did to Paris, France, because she couldn't get work as a professional artist here in the States because the space was so limited and so dark, right? And was treated in her mind differently in a European more mature art context, in a less racist art context than she was there. Eartha Kitt, quiet as it's kept, was whitelisted. Eartha Kitt was outspoken about our movement, right? And it actually went through a white listing. People forget that Eartha Kitt was the real Catwoman.
Yeah.
Right? Some of us old enough to remember that. Okay.
I remember that.
She went through some stuff because she spoke out against the war. She spoke up for civil rights, right? And she went through some stuff with Hollywood, right? Brilliant woman, multilingual, right? Sing, dance, act. She had the whole package in terms of the performing arts, and should have had more opportunities to get in more work. But she had went through a white issue, right?
Was Batgirl?
I'm sorry, Donna.
Eartha Kitt was Batgirl. I just think when she was
Batwoman. She wasn't nobody's girl.
Right.
She was Batwoman.
Yeah, right.
She was powerful.
Yeah. Primetime TV. Black woman. Catwoman.
Yes.
Yeah. But real quick, I just want to get into some birthdays real quick. Friends of the show, my man Big G Dub, y'all know him as The Voice. You know what I'm saying? He just had a born day on the 15th. I want to shout him out. Happy born to them. Also, Public Enemy's Flavor Flav just had one on the 16th.
Hey,
Flav, yeah, boy, Flavor Flav, happy born. I also want to say happy born to Sean Price, rest in peace. Sean Price from Boot Camp Click, his 17th. He just had a birthday on the 17th. And then Brick City's own Queen Latifah just had one yesterday.
She did. Yes, she did. Yes,
so
she
we got to
did.
pick up.
And listen, I'm loving her show. I'm loving her show.
Yeah. I still haven't been
loving her show.
Able to tune in because I worked on that night. So I'm always coming in when it's going off. I still got to.
It's on demand. You can get
It's on demand.
it done 4 episodes, right?
Yeah.
That's when I can't sleep, which is like almost every night.
Mm-hmm.
I caught up with it quick. Sister and she's got Lorraine Toussaint playing her aunt.
And she's renewed, and it got renewed. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Lorraine Toussaint is a brilliant actor who's also been underexposed, right?
Right.
So I'm looking at that show on several levels. I'm looking at it as an actor, right? But but somebody who's a father of daughters, right, and is also serious about women's liberation, right? It's a very liberating role that she's playing. The what you call it?
Equalizer. Yeah. Now, have you heard that they're trying to combine now? They're trying to combine the Equalizer with LL show, NCIS, LL Cool J. They're trying to combine the two shows, so we're gonna see how that works out. They got the two rappers in the lead roles there. So we're gonna see how that works out, man. It sounds kind of interesting.
The other thing that we also, I actually wish we could get hold of Queen, right? Because she's also investing in our town on Springfield Avenue in affordable housing. Yeah. So I'm very proud of her. But I don't care what anybody say about her. That's my girl.
But Queen Latifah said it since the Equalizer's been on. She has always, the flavor unit has always been purpose about bringing that money back to the community.
She's been consistent about that.
Yeah.
She's been very consistent.
Even in the beginning of her career, she was adamant about making sure she pulled talent from Newark, New Jersey, and East Orange, right. And you know what I mean, and the surrounding. That's right. She put Tretch on and Flavor Unit and all of that. So she's always been true to her roots.
Indeed.
But also want to say happy anniversary to see this shirt that I got on. Wow.
Oh my God, I remember the movie.
The original hip hop movie. The anniversary is the anniversary of the movie Wild Style. The director Tommy Ahern, he directed the film. He got all of the original pioneer artists from the original era. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that got cut out because of sound issues. They were really working with, it was like a low budget film. So they really had a hard time with the sound issues. So there was a lot of people that were originally in the movie, like Grandmaster Flash.
Yes.
Were originally in the movie, but they got cut out because of sound issues. A lot of those scenes had to be recorded a second time because of the sound. Mm-hmm. But and then there was also
next year be 40 years for that film.
Yeah, and then there was also issues like a couple of groups were going through breakups at the time, so real difficult for them to pull that movie off. They did it, and it goes down in history as the first and the main real hip hop movie ever.
All the elements were there. That's right.
Afterwards, we had Beat Street, we had Crush Rule, we had Breaking. We had those, but there's nothing like Wild Style. Wild Style, all the elements. It was raw. It had the real people involved in the movie. And I want to say happy anniversary. I remember when the movie first came out. I remember the trailer for the movie, just seeing guys on the big stage at the amphitheater and they breaking and across the stage. My mother took me and one of my best friends, my man Kel, took us out to the movie theater to go see that, man. I'll never forget that. Like that's an experience I'm always gonna remember because I was young and I was doing graffiti at that time, and I was breakdancing at the time, and shortly afterwards I got into DJing as well. So that's a movie that's always going to be dear to my heart personally.
Yeah, that's
definitely happy anniversary Wild Style.
It's a time marker. 39 years. Oh my God.
39 years. And also, I want to say, we got another birthday. Newark Brick City's own Artifacts, Tame One from the Artifacts in Newark Brick City. His birthday's tomorrow. So I want to say happy born to him. We got a lot of Pisces birthdays going on.
What's your favorite Artifacts joint?
My favorite Artifacts joint? The one I did. Ingredients to Time Travel. Me and Tame One's joint on the second album. That's them. But all of the joints. I mean, I worked with Artifacts before they got their deal. I was the one that I was there when Tame and L first got together. Jay Byrne, who was an artist from out here, he was the one that brought MCL up to my house. And we introduced L and Tame together because we thought that they were kind of similar, like they kind of had similar vibes. So we kind of put them together, and they became That's Them. And they did a whole lot of recordings with my, under my production and stuff like that at the house. And then they branched off, and they started getting studio time at bigger studios. They linked up with Biz Markie. They linked up with Brand Nubian, Sadat X, and Brand Nubian took them under the wing. And then, of course, back then, Stretch and Barbito, the radio show, Stretch and Barbito, that was going on WKCR 9.9. And, they got their recognition on that radio show. And from there, that's how they ended up getting their record deal with Big Beat Atlantic Records. And
WKCR,
production. Say that again?
KCR, that's Columbia University Radio.
Yeah.
Right. And KCR did some of everything. In addition to what you're talking about, what they did with hip hop, they also were playing jazz.
Yeah.
In the early days of WBGO, there was a white boy on WBGO in the morning named Phil Shapp, who knows Charlie Parker like Charlie Parker was his mama. All right. And he left WBGO, the jazz station, to have a place exclusively for him to do Charlie Parker. Guess where he went? He went next door on the dial to KCR. KCR is a deep space.
Yeah. And going back to Nas, that was another place where Nas started, was on Stretch and Barbito's show. A lot of iconic artists that come from that true hip hop generation. A lot of iconic artists came through Stretch and Barbito's show.
Yes.
So I definitely want to say happy born to Tame One, the Artifacts. That's Newark. That's Brick City right there. When you talk about Tame One, you probably seeing his name around on the walls in the city.
Right.
So yeah, that's real.
So Rhino, last Saturday morning, I watched the Biggie documentary, and Zaid, as y'all talk, it was really, really good. A lot of
which documentary?
Biggie.
Okay. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, on Netflix. But as you speaking about jazz, I think about the jazz artists who live next door, around the corner from Biggie, and how he became like a father figure to him. And you know that Zaid, remember Amiri, the poem where he be like,
yeah, that's his poem of reparations.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's scatting the music of John Coltrane's Equinox.
Well,
yeah, that's
so I can't think of the jazz artist who was a father figure to Biggie, but he showed us how he was he was trying to make him a jazz musician. He was trying to make Biggie, but Biggie took those jazz beats and began to rap, and he showed us was it the one with Mtumi, Lucy, and how he rapped off of that, and that part was really interesting. So I was it
was like he contributed what he learned from brother. He contributed that into his flow, like that became
Yeah.
And he did it the same.
That's the genius of hip hop.
And but think about this, though. Think about this. We got to think about Rakim. Rakim was the same way. Rakim used to play saxophone. He learned through John Coltrane, right?
He talks about it.
It was Rakim that came up with the idea to fit more syllables in between the bars. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a lot of simplified rapping before Rakim. When we got into it, he fit more words, more syllables in between those bars.
Coltrane did the same thing. With jazz.
Right. Exactly.
That's a gem.
That's what
You blew up the mic. You just blew up the mic, Rhino.
Right, but that's why Rakim's his style is so. But yeah, that Notorious B.I.G. was really, really good, and it was something else that you were saying, but I'll think about it. But I do want to say I had left you last week, and I was like, yeah, Jada, Jenny from the Block, and Rodriguez. But isn't it something how, and it came to be that the media took the narrative and took it their way, and it wasn't possibly the whole truth. But even through tonight, and Zaid, you have constantly said that we have to ensure that we're controlling the narrative. And I think of like the Republicans or whoever the opposition may be, but how the long game is. And I can remember the guy, is it Rupert Murdoch, but buying up all of this airspace. And I can remember when 98.7 Kiss sold and how our they were taking off, or NJR, like just buying off all of our radio stations, our airspaces, and how strategic that was. And we need to be, or BET or things like that. We got to be so careful because they are in it so for the long game, so they can control the narrative, not just in music, but in news.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we get into the last 5 minutes of the show. So Rhino, I got a question for you. So you heard that Kanye West is now the richest Black American in the
That
country?
blew my mind.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thanks to cancel culture.
Yeah. So that
Something
he's
like
surpassed
6
Oprah Winfrey.
billion.
Yeah.
So what?
So
He's richer than Jay-Z now?
He's richer
I
than Jay-Z. He's richer than that brother
I
who
can't
paid
count past
for
100,000.
all those who paid for all those brothers to graduate from down in Morehouse. This brother is now the richest Black American in this country.
Wow, that blew my mind.
And they said that came from his associations with different companies and with the Yazzie Brown or whatever the brand that he has.
Yeah, with the retail stuff, the clothes. Yeah.
With all of his retail. And so that caused him to become and we're talking about ownership now. Yeah. We're not talking about a guy who has partnerships. He owned that brand. And so that is the reason why he surpassed everybody. And the analogy that they used is that not even Michael Jordan owns the Jordan brand.
How about that?
Right?
How about that?
And so therefore he would not ever be as rich as Kanye West will be because this brother owns that brand.
I pray on that note, Ed, I pray for all my little brother's mental health.
Yeah.
Because I would dare say he, ever since he lost his mother, that he has not been the same.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And he's getting ready to go through that divorce. For whatever you say about Kim and all that, I would dare say she helped hold him together to the degree that he's been together for these last few years.
Yeah.
Whatever that's been. So I really pray for that brother's health so he can actually do something and recover and make a difference with that resources because he's got plenty to help a whole lot of people with.
Yeah, we hope so, man.
And there are plenty of sharks out there ready to take it from him, starting with the government.
Oh yeah. Well, it's that that if you don't have the right legal and accounting team in place with that much money, it's coming because most Black folk lose it based around taxes, right?
There you go.
So we got 3 minutes, and so Rhino, if you want to wrap it up, and if anybody have any last statements, let's try to get it in now so that Donna don't hit us with a question at the end of the show, and then we
that requires 2 hours to answer.
It's been good. It's been you in it.
No, I was trying to let the man go, and you asked him a question on the end, and we couldn't keep. He wound up leaving the show. I'm telling you, we gotta get better at our time. But go ahead, y'all wrap it up.
First, let me just say it was a loaded show. I appreciate everybody that came on from the mayor, what he's doing, right? He's really, helping Newark once again be in the national spotlight for the right reasons, as his father had us in the national spotlight 50 years ago for the right reasons. I'm proud of that little brother, right? I'm proud. It was good to see our little sister back, and that she can breathe, And that folks who are in the space that some of our immigrant folks are in, are in a better space. And we need to have a full session on what these ICE camp means and what these new laws mean for ICE practice here in the whole thing. Todd Burrows was trying to tell me something. I can't see what he say, but I want to get at what he says.
Yeah, he just said let it go. He's laughing at you.
Oh, okay, because he don't want to go after the national network of publishers Association, the Black newspapers. Yeah, that's going. But I got an avenue. I got to try. I got to try though. I appreciate Todd saying that. And then Ricardo, Dr. Alvarez, we've had some brilliant medical professionals on this show, right? And I'm glad we were able to add to that line of brilliant medical young professionals to that show with Ricardo Alvarez and what he's doing for Mumia Abu-Jamal. So it was a good show, just a loaded good show, and I'm just glad we were able to do it.
Donna?
No, just everybody have a good weekend, a good week. We know winter went out with a bang. Tomorrow is the first day of spring, but this is the beginning. We're at the anniversary when things started to shut down. So a year in reflection in terms of COVID. And just be mindful, because as these cities try to fast track and go back to opening, like Connecticut is at 100, you're seeing another surge again.
That's right.
So put yourself, and I have not heard the mayor, but I know the mayor is like, we don't do things like everybody else doesn't, because we don't, because we get sicker, when some people get the cold, we get the flu. So pace yourself, people. And I just lost my train of thought, but we have a great show next week. And
who you got?
Oh, we'll talk. We'll put it out. I know
All
we're
right,
gonna
because all right.
Timberlake Hour, Assemblywoman Timberlake Hour, her and her squad. So it's gonna be a good week. It's also the disciples.
We ripped it up with Angela McKnight a couple days ago.
Yeah, the CC. So she'll be on. So but in terms of this COVID, guys, we're not done with it yet. And people, I have to say that I lost one of my friends. He and he lives in Atlanta, and something is going out to an event, and now his family is preparing his homegoing due to COVID. So people, pace yourself. That's it. And you see the numbers coming across the bottom. Kanye 6.6, Jay-Z, and he outpaces everybody. So you see the numbers going across the bottom.
Yeah, the numbers are serious.
Right.
And just shout out to Kim too. Hey Kim, love you. John, we miss you. I hope you're doing good with the debate team tonight.
Hell yeah.
All right, so real quick I know we're out of time. I just want to say this, we were talking about the Biggie thing. The thing about that Biggie documentary was that his boy D-Rock documented everything with that camera. Even before he had a record deal, he was documenting everything from when they were like kids. And, the late, great Jerry Gant from Brick City, Newark, said, document everything. That's right. And we're talking about changing the narrative and being able to control the narrative. The main way you can control the narrative is that you document everything and you have proof of everything that took place. So they can't tell stories and lies and fabricate things. Make sure you document everything, whether it's video, whether it's writing it down, whatever. Document everything so that you have it. Me and my boys, Boom Squad, Hidden Percent, we were talking about artifacts. We're all doing our documentary because we have a story to tell. Everybody has a story to tell. Tell your story. So document everything. In the words of the late great Jerry Gant.
Don't live Jerry Gant. That's right.
All right, y'all. Well, listen, that's going to do it. Of course, Donna, you already said we're thinking about John Austin, right? We hope everything's going well with his debate. That's our other co-host. And again, I want to thank all of the guests tonight. We thank the mayor, of course, as Zaid just said, for coming on and doing the mayor's forum tonight. We thank his guests. Of course, having our brother, my son, General, from Until Freedom, and of course, an activist, and a hip hop artist, right?
That's right.
So we thank our brother for coming on, and of course, we thank Dr. Alvarez, right? So I just want to echo what Zaid said. I think it was a very loaded show. It was very packed. It was very dynamic, and of course, we thank everyone for tuning in and listening. And we thank Mike in the background. Right?
That's right, Mike. We appreciate it.
Who's always pulling all of the strings and making us look real professional. We thank you, Mike, for always showing up to the party and never showing up tardy. All right. So again, y'all listen to All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio. All right.
Let's see you next week, and you don't stop.